Welcome to Endara Gaming, where we beat the games. In this video, I'm going to rank every single game that I played and beat in 2023. It's 61 different games. Alright, let's get right into it with number 61. Number 61, Jurassic the Hunted, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2009. Jurassic the Hunted is a first-person shooter video game developed by Cauldron HQ and published by Activision. In this title, the player takes control of former Navy SEAL Craig Dillon as he accompanies his war buddy Armando Rock de Piedra and scientist Sabrina Sayris to the Bermuda Triangle searching for Sabrina's father, Dr. James Sayris. The trio are forced to jump out of the plane after this vortex attacks the plane, I guess you could say, and each character has to jump through a different vortex, like wormhole, landing in a different place in the Bermuda Triangle. The characters are then stuck on a dinosaur-infested area with a plentiful amount of guns and ammo laying randomly around in crates. Combat encounters include these arena-style battles, fortification sieges, survival modes, and boss fights. Adrenaline Burst gives an edge to your character by allowing the player to visualize and then target an opponent's weak point, such as the heart, lungs, brain, ribcage, backbone, liver, and intestines, and this is done in slow motion. This game, to sum it up and give a general overview, is absolutely, positively horrible. It's bad, this title is not worth playing, and my mind is blown that this title even got released like this. I was actually pretty psyched to play this game as I had played a bunch of Wii shooters this year, and I expected this game to be like an on-rail survival horror shooter type game with dinosaurs, like it kind of sounded cool. And the intro cutscene was somewhat decent and got me kind of interested in the game. But immediately after starting, I realized that this game is actually not on rails at all. Your character has full 3D movement, which I thought was pretty cool for about 30 seconds. You move around with the nunchuck and you turn with the Wii remote, which isn't really like a terrible setup on its face, and it was similar to some of the stages in Link's crossbow training, which is an okay game, but oh man, did this title control worse than Link's crossbow training. I found myself stuck turning and spinning in circles or trying to just make a 90-degree turn. I found myself just getting frozen every few seconds during gameplay. Aiming was very, very difficult. The backgrounds and textures looked awful, and it was hard to see when there were enemies nearby because of how bad the game looks. The frame rate was inconsistent and awkward. The enemy AI was brainless, and combat was just not enjoyable. At least there was a nice variety of weapons in this game and plentiful ammo, but I do not recommend anyone play this game ever. Oh, come on! Damn it! Damn it! I couldn't even fucking see! Ugh! Yo, this game's terrible. I hate this game. Is this game worse than Jurassic the Hunted? Probably not, but it's bad. Number 60, Sonic and the Secret Rings, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2007. This title is a platform video game developed by Sonic Team and published by Sega. It's a spin-off from the Sonic the Hedgehog series, and it's the first title in the franchise for the Wii. It follows Sonic's quest to stop an evil genie named Eraser Jin. In addition to the basic platforming gameplay of previous Sonic titles, this game uses a system of experience points and levels, as well as special moves that are unlocked via leveling up. I actually didn't mind having a progression system like that in this game. It was one of very few interesting things to be found in this title. This title was released in place of an aborted attempt to port the 2006 game Sonic the Hedgehog to the Wii. This game had an Arabian Nights theme, which was pretty different for a Sonic the Hedgehog game. It used elements of Arabian Nights in the story, in the setting, and there's like a Middle Eastern influenced style and music. Apparently, Sega changed the title of this game several times, originally being announced as Sonic Wildfire before Sonic Team settled on Sonic and the Secret Rings. This game features on-rails movement. Sonic is the only playable character, and he is moved exclusively just with the Wii Remote. You hold it horizontally like a traditional gamepad. Players adjust his forward movement by tilting the controller. He runs along a pre-designated path. Players could jump, they could break, launch Sonic into homing attacks, and move from target to target in the middle of the air. This game also features a section of party-style minigames. Very early on, playing through this title, it became apparent to me that this was one of the worst games I've ever played in my life. And it boils down to the control. Using the Wiimote to steer Sonic is unintuitive, it's unresponsive, and it feels just icky. It's extremely difficult to move in a straight line and grab items from a standstill that are right next to you. Walking backwards, which you're forced to do in this game on occasion, feels awful. It's so weird. It's like the game designers knew how bad the controls to this game were, and they placed challenges in front of you that wouldn't be a big deal in a normal platformer game, but they're extremely challenging here because of the controls. And it's like the developers knew that. They wanted to challenge you with the terrible control scheme that they developed. It's crazy. I was ready to tear my hair out on many, many occasions while I was controlling Sonic in this game, and I would say nearly 100% of the difficulty here was struggling against the piss-poor controls. Some of the minigames were decent once you figured out the controls for them, but I wouldn't say that they compare favorably to the Mario Party games. The story is also pretty uninteresting. The still frame cutscenes are not impressive, and honestly, on the Wii, they could have done a lot better. I will mention a couple bright spots in this game, though. The music was okay, some of the stages were designed pretty well, and the boss fight against Eraser Jin before he absorbed the 7 rings was pretty fun. But regardless, never play this game unless you're just looking to experience every Sonic game ever made. Otherwise, I would not recommend it. Alright, we're just gonna... the controls are just such ass. I just couldn't go straight. Well, I just wanted to go straight, and it was impossible. Yeah, these awful damn controls. Oh my god, bro. Just go straight. Holy... What are you doing? Just go fucking straight. Oh my god, go straight. Such a shit game. Just fucking go straight. Just walk straight. That's all you had to do. Is just... Why are you walking backwards, bro? Oh my god. Sisyphus, April, which that's weird. Ray. I remember having this action figure actually in Casey Jones. Number 59, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, released for the Sega Genesis in 1993. There was actually 3 different TMNT Tournament Fighter games released all around the same time. Each game isn't its own subtly different version of the other games. They are actually, each one is a completely different game with different characters and different mechanics. And the Sega Genesis one is the worst one, in my opinion. I played this game years ago before I streamed it, and I remember being really, really frustrated with it. I stopped playing it pretty quickly. Streaming it this year, obviously Endara Gaming is where we beat the game, so I kept playing until I beat it. And oh man, the only way I can get through this game, or even win any fights, was through just cheesing with certain abilities and making the game as easy as possible. And the difficulty settings themselves were very convoluted, and it was kind of difficult to even figure out how they worked. This game takes place in Dimension X, which is kind of cool, but the stages are just dead and lifeless with these muted colors and just nothing going on. The game doesn't feel alive. The gameplay is not fun, it's not balanced, and it's not fair. The roster is pretty small, but also pretty cool. The April in this game seemed just odd and unlike any version of April I've ever seen before. Granted, I'm really unfamiliar with the comics. Maybe this April is from something that I'm just not familiar with. Out of the 3 Tournament Fighter games, this is the only one that does not have Shredder, but it's also the only one that does have Krang, so I found that to be pretty interesting. If you're gonna play one of the Tournament Fighter games, I would definitely recommend you ignore and avoid this one, as the other 2 are much better. Alright! Dude, come on, I'm dying every 5 fucking steps. I'm not gonna beat this game at this rate. Number 58, Metal Slug 4, released for the arcades in 2002. I played Metal Slug 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and X on the Wii Metal Slug Anthology. The controls for the Wii version of these games are really poor, as you must shake the Wiimote to throw a grenade, and the classic style Wii controllers are not supported in this title. Since I am reviewing each title in the anthology separately, I decided to judge them very harshly, especially the entries I felt were more lackluster than the others. Conversely, I gave the better titles a big bump up my list. In Metal Slug 4, the first stage was pretty cool, with a section where you ride on a motorcycle as a passenger, which was quite different than most of the other stages in these games. I felt that most of the levels here were pretty uninteresting and just similar to the other stages in the previous games. Stage 2 and 4 both felt challenging, but mostly because of constant cheap deaths, not because of a fair challenge like what Metal Slug 3 has. I was happy this title didn't feature an alien invasion again, but instead, some random old dude was the final boss, and that wasn't really too good either. The ending was anticlimactic, especially after the awesome endings of Metal Slug 2 and 3. After completing the entire anthology, I considered Metal Slug 4 to be the worst game in the series. If you want to give these titles a go, I would suggest starting elsewhere.
Very hard. Fun, though. Who is that guy? That's a new character. Yeah, this must be the boss, I'm thinking, but... This is on Aliens again. I was getting tired of that. Oh, cool.
Yeah, Gunblade New York, that's the game. That's the one we want to play.
Number 57, Gunblade New York, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2010. Gunblade New York is a light gun rail shooter. It was developed by Sega for this arcade machine, where you control this giant light gun, and you utilize it like it's this turret, pivoting it back and forth, as you use it to destroy robots attacking New York City. You're assuming the role of a door gunner aboard a Special Air Assault Force experimental Boeing AH-64 Apache, and the weapon you're using is supposed to be an M60 machine gun. This game was re-released alongside its sequel, LA Machine Guns: Rage of the Machines for the Wii in 2010 as part of the Sega Arcade Hits Pack, and that's how we played it this year. Now, I played this game in the arcades as a little kid, and man do I have nostalgia for this game. I played it in this little mall in my town where they had this awesome setup where you had this giant gun and you'd sit and there's like this really big screen and the effects and everything were so cool and awesome. In that version, you were using this giant light gun to mow down these robots, but playing it in the Wii, it did not feel too similar to my childhood memories. In fact, it wasn't fun at all. The graphics were much uglier than I remembered. Even for these early 3D polygons, they still looked really bad. The gameplay was just frustrating, and every enemy moved around really quickly and flipped around all over the place like they were maniacs. I don't think this game's worth playing in current year.
Damn. This is actually the room.
Number 56, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2020. To be fair, there is more to this game than what I experienced. I understand that there are like items and power-ups and obstacles you could set up to avoid in the game. I never really tinkered around with this enough to really figure out how to set that up. More so, I played this as like a toy using the Switch than an actual game, and I played this a lot with my kids. My kids loved it. I would recommend this game actually for your kids just to have like almost like a remote control car and use the Switch as the screen to like pilot it, which I think is pretty cool. It's pretty surreal technology, very customizable, the way that you could set up any kind of obstacles you want aside from the crappy cardboard obstacles that come with the game. But me playing it as an adult, it got boring very, very fast. My kids love it though, again. So if you have young children and they like remote control cars and things like that, it could be a fun toy. As a video game, my experience with it, I didn't love it. Next year, maybe I'll try to tinker with it a little more and get a little deeper into the mechanics of this game, but I didn't really have a great time with it this year.
Make the cart go faster.
Yeah, check it out. I've never played the NES version. I never even knew about it until like a few years ago. Manhattan, present day. Number 55. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1994. This is the second Tournament Fighter turtle game on my list. It is not as terrible as I had heard. When I read about the NES version of this game, I read that it was really, really bad. I didn't find it to be terrible. I had some fun with it. The game is pretty limited with only, don't forget, this is an 8-bit cartridge. It has only 4 stages with 7 playable characters, so there's not much variety. But to be fair, I was low-key impressed with everything that they fit on this 8-bit cart. One unique feature that really makes this version of Tournament Fighters stand out from the other 2 versions is that at some point in a match between 2 fighters, Splinter's face will appear on this floating monitor that will drop a red power-up ball in the middle of the stage, and it can be retrieved by either fighter. Once a character grabs the ball, it will allow that character to use their special move. And it adds a little bit of variety to the fights as both characters will compete to grab the ball so that they can utilize their special technique. A little bit of a nitpick maybe is that each portrait for the turtles was the same, which was kind of annoying considering that there are so few characters they couldn't even give you unique portraits for the turtles. I found this game to be pretty simple but kind of fun. As far as fighting games go, I don't really love complicated combos and complex deep mechanics. I'm not great at fighting games, so a simple game like this with just a little bit of variety, I don't know, I had a pretty good time with this game. It wasn't bad. That's a powerful move, and brings you just right to him for the suplex.
Keep the time.
Both of them? Wait, both? I don't remember having to fight both of them. Oh, jeez. Number 54, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, released for the arcades in 1989. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, is a beat-em-up arcade title released by Konami. It is based on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series that began airing 2 years prior. In this game, up to 4 players control the Ninja Turtles, fighting through various levels to defeat the Turtles' enemies, including the Shredder, Krang, and the Foot Clan. This was released during a high point in popularity for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise. The arcade game was a worldwide hit, becoming the highest grossing dedicated arcade game of 1990 in the United States and Konami's highest grossing arcade game. The highly acclaimed Turtles in Time was a sequel to this title. After the Shredder kidnaps the Turtles' friend, April O'Neil, and their mentor, Splinter, the Turtles head into action to save them. You could play as any of the 4 Turtles in this game, and each one controls slightly differently. Donatello has slower attacks but a longer range. Michelangelo and Raphael have faster attacks but a shorter range, and Leonardo is a well-rounded turtle with an average range and speed. The bosses in this game include Rocksteady and Bebop, individually at first in that order, and later the 2 of them together. Baxter Stockman in his human form, Granitor, General Trag, Krang, and the Shredder himself. Now, I wasn't sure if I had played this game as a kid, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 on the NES is a port of this game and a title that I played a lot when I was a child. I found that the arcade version wasn't terrible, but there really wasn't much variety in the gameplay. I got pretty bored about halfway through the first level and I never got on board. It's not a very long game either. I found this game to be surprisingly difficult, but not in a good way. You die in very few hits, and I felt like I was constantly getting hit. A lot of times the hits didn't feel very fair, and the damage I took didn't seem avoidable, really. But again, it's a short game, so I guess I didn't have to suffer through it very long. I wouldn't really recommend playing this game if you're looking to have some great co-op beat-em-up fun. There are better Turtles games out there to play than this one. Alright, Krang's done.
I'm invincible.
Or is he not done? The Shredder. Now, this game is different from both the other games in that if you get all the way to the end of this game, it sends you back unless you've found each of the hidden treasures throughout the game. Number 53, Dragon's Lair 2 Time Warp, released for the arcades in 1991. Dragon's Lair 2 Time Warp is the first true sequel to Dragon's Lair. As with the original, Dragon's Lair 2 consists of an animated short film that requires the player to enter inputs at certain times to survive and continue through the adventure. It takes place years after the original Dragon's Lair. Dirk the Daring has married Daphne, and the marriage has produced many children. When Daphne is kidnapped by the evil wizard Mordroc in order to be forced into marriage, Dirk's children and his mother-in-law are clearly very upset by the abduction of Daphne, and Dirk must once again save her. I played this title along with Dragon's Lair and Space Ace on the Dragon's Lair trilogy on the Nintendo Wii. I consider this game to be the worst of the three titles. The gameplay here differs from the other games in important ways. First, it follows a linear sequence of events which flow one into the next, as opposed to the randomized sequences of rooms from the first game. Dying in this sequel also forces the player to resume from a checkpoint in the level, rather than starting at a randomly different level as in the original. Secondly, golden treasures are scattered throughout the game. Getting each treasure is required to reach the final scenes of this title. If the player misses any treasures, then you can't complete the story and the game loops back to the first treasure missed. And I would say that the treasures in this game are really the big gimmick that the developers use to try to make this game stand out. Unlike in the first game, the actions that a player must take are prompted by a brief flash of what Dirk should use or where he should go next. However, to retrieve a golden treasure, the player may need to move in a direction other than what is flashing. Some scenes are randomly mirrored from left to right on a replay, limiting the player's ability to rely on memorizing the input sequence and requiring close attention during repeat attempts. I found that the treasure system was a cool idea, but it wasn't implemented well. I found that trying to grab the treasures was annoying, and I also found that the story in this title was generally much less interesting than Dragon's Lair 1 or Space Ace, and I also found that this game wasn't very challenging. The only challenge I really found here was trying to get the treasures, but just going through the game normally wasn't hard at all. This title is completely skippable in my opinion. Treasure's coming up soon, I think. Here, we got the first one.
Trouble is cropping up all over the world. It's not just Null Sector.
A lot of lives are riding on what we do next.
We'll have to fight, one city at a time.
Number 52, Overwatch 2, released for the Xbox Series X in 2022. Now, I love Overwatch, and the base game is still really fun. Honestly, ranking this game so low at number 52 would have been hard to do, except for the fact that Blizzard is such a lazy, greedy company. They piss me off so much with what they did to this IP. I mean, there's basically no improvement over Overwatch 1. In fact, I'd say this game kind of plays a little worse. You have to pay for this battle pass and basically purchase every new character that they release. And they're releasing characters that were really good and unbalanced, so you kind of like are forced if you want to be competitive. They got rid of the awesome loot box system that they had before, where if you want to pay money to buy loot boxes, you could, or you just play the game a ton and unlock loot boxes and unlock, skins and voice lines and stuff like that. Blizzard lied about PvE. They released this game without PvE ready, which is basically the whole reason that they were coming out with Overwatch 2. And when they finally did release the PvE, many months later, it was this incomplete, awful mess that wasn't fun. This is terrible. They took an awesome IP in Overwatch 1, and they just bastardized it and made it this greedy cash grab. It's very upsetting, and my ill feelings towards Blizzard is why I rate this game so low. Don't play Overwatch 2, don't support Blizzard and their lazy, greedy business practices.
Get everyone out of here. Don't worry. I'll be right behind you.
You'd better be.
That was very, very short. It's kind of cool, though.
Number 51, LA Machine Guns, Rage of the Machines, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2010. LA Machine Guns, Rage of the Machines is a 3D on-rails fixed-gun shooter developed by Sega's AM3 division and released by Sega for arcades. This was the second of the two titles on the Sega Arcade Hits Pack that we played on the Nintendo Wii last year. I preferred this game significantly over the other title, Gunblade New York. This is technically a sequel to Gunblade New York and uses the same mounted machine gun controls. Instead of attacking from a helicopter, the players are driving virtual hover bikes throughout the west coast of the United States. This game is based in the year 2025 in Los Angeles. As you move along the fixed track and mow down robotic foes, you also must avoid accidentally killing civilians. I never played this game in the arcades, but in this Arcade Hits Pack, I'd say this game has slightly better graphics and gameplay than Gunblade New York. and it was also a bit deeper of a game. It's just pretty much better and more polished in every way than Gunblade New York. It's still not a great game, but I would say it's the better of the two. To be honest, both games on the Arcade Hits pack are skippable and not worth playing, especially considering these bundled Wii games are not cheap.
Man, that was pretty damn cool.
Alright. Dig it.
I was starting to like the game and starting to like get into it,
Don't put any
and
of
now
this
we're back
on
to
me.
this nonsense.
This is all you.
Number 50, the Dark Pictures anthology, The Devil in Me, released for the Xbox Series X in 2022. The Devil in Me is the fourth and final installment of the first season of the Dark Pictures anthology series. It is an interactive horror movie game with slasher horror elements developed by Supermassive Games and published by Bandai Namco Entertainment for a multi-platform release, including the PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series X, and the PC, and we played the Series X version. This game is based on Henry Howard Holmes, America's first serial killer. In this game, a group of filmmakers are invited to a modern-day replica of H.H. Holmes's murder house. But upon arrival, the characters have all kinds of unresolved conflicts between each other, and they eventually come to realize that they're being watched and manipulated, and that there's much more going on at this mansion, and things take a deadly turn. I've played every game that was done in this style by Supermassive Games. I've played every title. I was very excited for this one, as it seemed to kind of have this serial killer slash kill house, murder house kind of vibe. But when I played through it, I had a very slow start. Typically, the Supermassive Games horror titles do have slow starts, but it was really slow. It was hard to get into it. I found the characters to be uninteresting and unlikable, which really killed the game for me. I found the story was also uninteresting. There was a pretty poor, predictable plot twist, which is another downfall for some of these games. You know, I always reference the game House of Ashes that I played last year, because that plot twist was out of this world. In this game, I'm not going to really get into it, but it just wasn't that great. But I will say this. Out of all the Supermassive Games titles I played, this had the best platforming. It was much improved over the other titles. It had the best exploration, it had the best puzzle solving compared to the previous entries, and it was much less reliant on QuickTime events. So as far as it being a game, it was kind of the best one, but I still rank it really low because the things that make the Supermassive Games titles fun, it did those things poorly. I found that the horror sections in this game and the scares were also very well done and quite enjoyable. But again, overall, I would rank this game pretty low, and if you're going to get into Supermassive Games, I would not start with this one. Let's get the lighter. Do not let him light that. Grab that shit. Grab that shit. Grab that shit.
Stop! Please! Stop! Please!
Aw, man.
Number 49, Metal Slug 2, released for the arcades in 1998. As with the other Metal Slug games, I played this on the Metal Slug Anthology on the Nintendo Wii. I played every single game on that disc, and I rank this one as the second worst. I would say it's a lot more fun to play than Metal Slug 4. It's actually more the performance of this game that's the problems, which I'll get into. This game had a surprising variety of enemies, which included aliens, mummies, Arabic enemies with the Aladdin-type charm. There were camels. This game had new weapons from the first game. It had an epic ending, which was an homage to a scene from the movie Independence Day, and generally I found that the gameplay here was just more varied than the previous game, although some of the bosses were a little lackluster. Now I'll get into the performance a little bit. This game suffered from just this extreme slowdown, and the problem was so bad that they actually re-released this title with smoother gameplay the following year, and they released that as Metal Slug X, and it featured some other improvements as well, but most of the improvements had to do with the performance. And I played that game as well on the Anthology disc, which I'll get into much further down the list.
What is happening?
There was an investigator of the paranormal, a young psychologist named Ferdinand Social. On the night of the full moon, he received a mysterious message while using his board. It's a Ouija board. Killer. Vampire. Number 48, Vampire, Master of Darkness, released for the Sega Game Gear in 1993. Developed by the company SIMS and set in London at the end of the 19th century, this game stars psychologist Dr. Social, who is trying to unravel a series of bloody murders which are initially blamed on Jack the Ripper. I remember when I first heard about this game, I heard that it was a Castlevania clone, but a touch easier, and I would say that, playing through it, that's a pretty accurate description. But despite it being easier than Castlevania, I still struggled through several parts here, especially in round 2 and in the final confrontation with Count Masson and Dracula. This game's very short, very short, but that's okay. I think if it was a longer game, I probably would have liked it less. Count Masson was this recurring villain and boss, and I didn't really mind that too much, but considering this game was only 5 rounds long, it was kind of a shame that you fight Count Masson 3 separate times in the 5 level long game. Controls felt good for the most part, but your attack animation is a bit slow, which became a huge liability in some of the sections of this title. In general, I'd say this is a fun game with some cool settings and enemies, including Jack the Ripper, which I think was a cool boss, but this is not a must-play game. It's a skippable game. Wait! Did we beat the game? How good are we at games?
Who are
Chris Redfield from Alpha Team.
Alpha Team? Thank goodness.
Number 47, Resident Evil: The Umbrella Chronicles, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2007. I love Resident Evil, but when it comes to this game, I found it extremely difficult, and it requires notoriously precise aiming with the imprecise Wiimote. Nailing headshots was really frustrating, because even when you hit zombies right in the head, it's such a precise spot that you have to hit to get the headshot that it's just very inconsistent. And the headshots are really important as far as you scoring high in the levels, and you have to score high in the levels to unlock all the levels in this game, and it was just a big frustration for me. I mean, the game's a fun little romp. It's basically like a relived, abridged version of Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 1, and Resident Evil 3 in this light gun, House of the Dead, on-rails style. Some things in this game looked awesome, certain areas and cutscenes, while other things, especially the Resident Evil 3 scenario, looked muddy and low budget. There were upgradable weapons, and there were some really higher requirements for unlocking some of the secret missions, which gave the game some nice replay value, but I don't know if spending lots of time on this title is necessarily worth it. I did spend a tremendous time to unlock all the levels and beat them, and it's actually the second time I did this. Way before I streamed years ago, I did this before. But this really isn't a game I'd really ever want to play again. I was mostly just annoyed slogging through it and having to replay the same levels over and over and over again to build up weapons and to build up ammo and to unlock the levels and find all the little secret discs to increase my score. I felt like I never had enough ammo for the subguns, and I had to replay the same levels over and over again to grind ammo, which it just didn't feel like a good use of time. In fact, this game in general doesn't feel like a good use of time. Avoid it. There are things we could have done better. We might have got it. I think we got S rank on our items. What do you think, Epion? Did we do it? We could have definitely played that better. Clear time. Do we still have S? Yep. S, C. Yeah, baby! Woo! Yes! Yes! It was all about getting the S rank on the items. Yes! Booyah! Yep. Yes! And the fire just kind of freezes him, and he doesn't get to move. That was ridiculous. Number 46, Castlevania 2: Simon's Quest, released for the NES in 1988. I didn't find this game to be as horrible as I had heard. The Nintendo video game nerd, or the angry video game nerd rather, he did his very first video on this game just trashing it. Again, I don't think it's as bad as people say. It has a pretty cool format. Gameplay is nice and relaxing, but you know, it's a fairly short game. I beat it in one try. It's honestly too short. I found the music to be good. The day and night cycle wasn't as annoying as the angry video game nerd said it would be, but it still wasn't a great mechanic. When you're grinding, you basically just want it to always be nighttime so that you can get more hearts. But when you want to do stuff in the towns, you have to wait for night to end to be able to do anything, which is kind of annoying. This game is just too easy. There's only 3 bosses in the entire title, which 2 of them weirdly respawn if you exit and re-enter the room, that's just very strange, and that's not Castlevania. I think it would have been much more appropriate if there was a boss in every mansion, and I think something simple like that would have just made this game much, much better. Dracula's castle was empty, which seemed just really weird and lazy. The final fight with Dracula was nearly unlosable, as it was really easy to just stun lock him until he's dead, and that's a big disappointment. The extreme difficulty of battling Dracula is always a hallmark of this Castlevania series, so that was a big letdown. This game's way too cryptic, and that was one of the major gripes of the angry video game nerd when he reviewed this game all those years ago. He is right about that. But I was mentally prepared for that, and I already had guides up, so I didn't have to get all confused trying to figure out what to do. Is this game worth playing? Not really. Kind of disappointing, but we beat Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest.
Yeah, it looks pretty damn cool.
Number 45, Metal Slug, released for the arcades in 1996. This is the game that set the tone for the series. It's the first game. It had some intense gameplay, cool explosions. It was fun rescuing the POWs. It felt good blowing stuff up, shooting stuff, piloting the tanks and whatnot. But some of the later titles did have a lot more to offer. It's okay to start here to get your feet wet into the series, but it's not the best.
A lot of lives. Yeah.
Number 44, Link's Crossbow Training, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2007. Link's Crossbow Training is a spin-off of the Legend of Zelda series, and it shipped with the Wii Zapper. It was kind of created as a way to demonstrate how to use the Wii Zapper. It takes place in Hyrule from the time of Twilight Princess up until an unknown time, and Link has to pass a series of tests to perfect his marksmanship with the crossbow. Although he never attempted this title supports a 2 to 4 player turn-based multiplayer mode, where the Wii Zapper can be passed around from players and you can compete for who gets the highest score. This game features 3 separate game modes, including target shooting, where you shoot targets, defender, where the player remains in a fixed position, but you can move the camera around as enemies appear all around Link and you've got to take them out, and ranger mode, where you have a free-roaming control of Link, and you get to move around the environment using the nunchuck. This actually controls pretty well. The gameplay is pretty shallow, and the length's pretty short, but this game controlled well, and that's been a big problem for me when it comes to these Wii Lycon games, is that most of them don't control well. I found this game to be a pretty decent little distraction for a while, but I wouldn't go out of my way to play this game. I didn't mind the time I spent with it. It's very short and kind of forgettable. Based on a true story, that's interesting, right? First, I didn't realize that people ran around with cameras fighting ghosts. Number 43, Fatal Frame, released for the Microsoft Xbox in 2002. Fatal Frame is a survival horror video game developed by Tecmo. Set in the year 1986, the story follows siblings Miku and Mafuyu Hinasaki. When Mafuyu disappears while searching for a famous novelist in the haunted Himuru mansion, his sister Miku goes to find him. During her exploration of the mansion, she discovers clues as to the fate of those who entered. She must fight hostile ghosts and discover the truth behind a dark ritual that took place within the mansion. The gameplay focuses on the siblings exploring the mansion and fighting off the hostile ghosts using a special camera. During navigation, players guide the characters through multiple rooms, each with a semi-fixed camera perspective that changes depending on a character's position, kind of akin to some of the Silent Hill and Resident Evil games. Environments are invariably dark, with exploration being possible through the use of a flashlight. During exploration, various items can be found scattered throughout environments, including documents and cassette recordings, expanding on elements of the story, health items, and other usable items to help you access different areas and whatnot. In some sections, the main character must also solve puzzles to progress. Progress is saved at save points through the mansion and at the end of each chapter. The hostile ghosts can only be fought using the camera obscura, an antique camera that can capture ghosts. While using the camera, the view switches to a first-person view. The camera obscura is moved with the right analog stick on the controller, while the character can be moved with the left stick while maintaining a view through the camera. Holding a ghost in view enables greater damage, but ghosts fade in and out of view as they approach. This forces a player to choose between getting some quick damage on a ghost by taking a snapshot really fast, or trying to bide your time and hoping for a big payoff photograph, risking the ghost disappearing. It should also be noted that this game is very, very stingy when it comes to giving you film that you could use for your camera. Through combat, you could acquire points which could be used to upgrade the camera for faster reload times or greater damage with each shot. You could also add secondary powers to yourself, such as staggering ghosts when shooting at them. There are ghosts in this game that aren't necessarily hostile, and you can gain additional points by photographing those ghosts as well. I've heard about this series for years, and this was my first time getting into it. It had a really cool, creepy atmosphere with some truly terrifying ghosts and some very, very tense battles. I truly felt like afraid for my character, not really in the sense of roleplay wise, more in the sense of the difficulty of these fights and the struggle to have film, which is basically your ammo in this game, where a lot of times I just felt like, man, if I get attacked by a strong ghost right now, I'm screwed. It controlled mostly pretty decently, but there were times where I was getting stuck on walls and just on the air, which was kind of annoying. The story was pretty bland and uninteresting. I didn't find the story to be very good. There were some fun puzzles that slowly ramped up in difficulty. There was this one kind of puzzle where you had to connect these symbols, and you had to do this puzzle many times throughout this game, and every time you did it, it got slightly more difficult than the time before. That might sound boring, but I actually really enjoyed those sections. I kind of mentioned this before, but the combat became excruciatingly difficult towards the end, especially in the third night, and this game was just far too stingy with ammo and items in general. None of the characters in this game were memorable at all. I beat this game not too long ago, and I couldn't tell you a single character's name or anything that really happened. Whoa, wait a minute. What? Watch your language. This is a PG stream. Flash them and suck them up? Whoa. Stop sucking dudes, and maybe we wouldn't think things. There's only dudes to suck. And they're not gonna suck themselves. Number 42, Luigi's Mansion, released for the Nintendo GameCube in 2001. Luigi's Mansion initially started off as a tech demo for the Nintendo GameCube, but the producers decided to make it a full game. It marks the second time where Luigi is the main character, and where Mario was trapped and needed to be rescued. The first time being the terrible title, Mario is Missing. This game is notable for its dark tone and take on survival horror gameplay, as well as debuting series staples Professor Egad and King Boo. Professor Egad was studying ghosts and had developed a method of capturing malicious spirits and trapping them within paintings via the usage of the Poltergust 3000 and the Ghost Portrificationizer. Using these two contraptions, he managed to capture a large assortment of dangerous ghosts, putting them out of commission seemingly for good. However, Egad made an overzealous mistake when he managed to capture Boolossus, who just so happened to be the greatest ally of King Boo, the supreme ruler of the Boos. King Boo, enraged, launched an assault on Egad's laboratory with the aid of his remaining Boo army. Following this, King Boo sent out a false prize voucher for a mansion. Despite having never entered a contest to receive said mansion, Mario and Luigi were nonetheless excited, if a bit skeptical. Mario went to check out this mansion right away, while Luigi lagged behind. During this time, Mario was captured and his rescue was left to his brother Luigi. This is a game that I beat nearly 20 years ago. I remembered it being really, really good, and while it wasn't as good as I remembered, it was still a fun little title. It had a spooky atmosphere, which was really appropriate when I played it around Halloween time. I found that some of the unique ghosts were really cool and creative. The game was short, but in a good way, and ended before it wore out its welcome, which was appropriate. I found that controlling and aiming Luigi's vacuum cleaner was a little bit unintuitive at times, and could be frustrating, but I still had fun with this. King Boo down, Bowser down. We beat another game. That's pretty cool. I mean, this game is pretty fun. Number 41, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, released for the arcade in 1991. Last year's list, we played the Super Nintendo version. This year, we played the arcade version, which I was really excited for, and this is a game I have played in arcades, although I don't really have a lot of memories of it, but I know that I have played it in arcades. This was a sequel to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. In this title, players guide the turtles through a series of levels. The first takes place in the streets of New York City, others transport the turtles to representations of various historical eras. In each level, players face enemies from both the 1987 cartoon and the feature film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze. Bosses featured in this arcade version are Baxter Stockman in his fly form, Metalhead, a group of pizza monsters, Cement Man, the duo of Toka and Razar from the movie, Leatherhead, Krang, first in his android suit and then in a huge UFO, and of course, the Shredder himself. This title was missing some stages that were later added to the SNES version, and I definitely preferred the SNES version to the arcade one. I will say that the sound effects and voices were really cool in this version, plus I absolutely loved the title theme song. I played through this with my friend Don, and we were both kinda underwhelmed with the length and variety in this game. It wasn't that much fun, especially considering that I played this game around the same time I played Shredder's Revenge, which is a much superior beat-em-up game. Oh, Toka and Razor both! That's awesome! That's awesome! I dig the cutscenes and everything. I think it's cool. I think this game plays pretty well as a fighting game. I think it's pretty decent. Number 40, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, released for the Super Nintendo in 1993. Now, out of the 3 Tournament Fighter Turtle games, this was my favorite one. I thought it was the best one by far, and this one maybe kind of would be worth playing again. Possibly, maybe. This title features the following characters: Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, Cyber Shredder, War, who is this monstrous purple character with big claws. He's one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Adventures comics. Asuka, she's a ninja girl seeking to open her own dojo. She's an original character who makes her first and only appearance in the franchise in this game. Apparently, she was inspired by a character called Mitsu from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 movie, although I don't really remember who that character is. There's Chrome Dome, an android from the animated series, and he was initially created by Shredder to destroy the Turtles. Wingnut, a humanoid alien bat-like creature who appeared in several issues of the comic series, as well as the 1987 TV series. And Armagon, a mutant shark from the future, also from the comic series. This game also features 2 boss characters: the Rat King, who I remember from the TV show. He's a deranged man who cast away his humanity and considers himself a rat, even though he is not a mutant. And lastly, Karai, the female leader of the Shredder Elite. She only appeared in the original comics at the time of this game's release. The gameplay was really smooth, the game was colorful, I liked the cast of characters, the backgrounds were animated and felt alive. I'd say that this game is worth playing. If you like fighting games, if you like old school, simple SNES, Sega Genesis style fighters, this game is worth going back to, I would say, once in a blue moon. He lost. We beat him in one try, like nothing. What a letdown that was. I mean, we did it. We beat this game. We did it.
Space Ace, defender of justice, truth, and the planet Earth.
Number 39, Space Ace, released for the arcades in 1983. We played this on the Dragon's Lair trilogy on the Nintendo Wii. Space Ace was originally a Laserdisc game, similar to Dragon's Lair, requiring the player to move a joystick or press fire buttons at key moments, kind of like quick time events. And a lot of this game is just all about timing, and you could actually pick different routes. And there was this cool mechanic where if you pressed a button at a certain time, you could transform and it would kind of change your route and change the quick time events you'd have to do. At the start of this game, you had to pick between 3 different skill levels: Cadet, Captain, or Space Ace, for easy, medium, and hard difficulties, respectively. But only choosing the toughest level could a player see all the sequences in the game. And if you played on the easiest mode, you would actually only see about half of the scenes, so you kind of had to play it on the hardest difficulty to really play through it. I found this title to be a pretty fun compilation of QuickTime scenes. The final sequence was a lot less thrilling than the final sequence of Dragon's Lair, and I didn't really enjoy the space environment as much as I enjoyed the fantasy environment in Dragon's Lair, but this game it's okay. Is it worth going back to? Is it worth playing? Not really, but I don't think you'd hate yourself if you spent some time on this title.
Call me Ace, huh?
Those look like new enemies. New vehicles.
Number 38, Metal Slug 5, released for the arcades in 2003. In this Metal Slug iteration, you start out in a jungle stage, reminiscent of First Blood Part 2, which is pretty cool. I enjoyed the first level quite a bit, but this title felt really short when I beat it. When I got to the final stage, I was going through it, and I really felt like there was going to be one more stage after it, and the game just ends. I definitely prefer this game over Metal Slug 4, but it wasn't that great really either. Some of the boss deaths were underwhelming. I remember feeling that if they had transitioned to cool boss music for the battles, then this title would have been improved, but it's okay.
Oh, it's fast. Oh, fuck. This isn't working.
Number 37, The House of the Dead, Overkill, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2009. House of the Dead Overkill is a real shooter, just like House of the Dead 2 and 3, but this game is not a port of the arcades. It is a unique title for the Nintendo Wii. I thought it was a pretty interesting little spin-off of the House of the Dead series, and it's a non-canon prequel to the original game, apparently. I found this game to be pretty gory, I found the environments creepy, and the game really didn't take itself seriously. It was full of jokes and one-liners and kind of ridiculous, campy dialogue.
Isaac Washington. Make
Detective
him mad,
Washington.
and he'll rip your balls off.
There were upgradable weapons, and it was pretty fun to try and make as much money as possible to upgrade your weapons. The bosses were mostly fun, but probably a little worse overall than the bosses in the other House of the Dead titles, especially House of the Dead 2, which had awesome boss fights. The textures here were dark and muddy, and there was a lot of recoil in the screen movement. This game was a pretty great time. I had a lot of fun playing through it, but it wasn't very polished. I'll say that the final couple levels and the final boss were a bit lackluster. There's a director's cut mode that I unlocked after beating the game, increasing the difficulty and adding some areas. I might return to this title and check that out one day, but I did not play through those on this playthrough.
Then I can die happy. Goodbye, boys.
What the fuck? So weird. Okay.
Oh shit! Number 36, Five Nights at Freddy's, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2014. I played this in the Five Nights at Freddy's Core Collection. This game featured some really intense jump scares that actually had me jumping out of my seat, screaming like, oh my god! It was really intense at times, especially as you got near the end of each night and you started to run low on power. The game was a pretty fun title, but also there wasn't a lot to it. You just kind of sit in a security room, monitor cameras, close doors, and you try to manage your resource, which is your power percentage. But aside from that, there's just not a lot to this game. Oh shit. I did play this game as a kid. My neighbor either rented it or bought it, and I played it with him. but it's not a game I played like a ton. So I feel like he probably rented it. Bummer dudes, it's Shredder. Number 35, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3: The Manhattan Project, released for the NES in 1991. The gameplay here was very similar to games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, and Turtles in Time, Hyperstone Heist. This game features 8 levels, spanning from the beaches of Florida to the floating island of Manhattan, the Technodrome, and finally to Krang's spaceship. And unlike TMNT 2, the arcade game, and Turtles in Time, this, like Hyperstone Heist, is an original console beat-em-up game, where it's not a port of from the arcades, which makes it a little bit unique, I think. This game's bosses include villains from the cartoon series and toy lines such as Dirtbag, Ground Chuck, Slash, and Leatherhead, in addition to the return of Shredder and Krang, along with Bebop and Rocksteady. Toka and Razor from the film TMNT 2 The Secret of the Ooze also appear alongside Shredder's mutated counterpart from the film, Super Shredder, as the game's final boss. We got 3 lives. It's kind of a lot, it's not a ton. Super Shredder, like from the second Turtles movie. Awesome. I always get stoked seeing Super Shredder, as when I was a kid, it always bothered me that the Turtles didn't actually get to fight Super Shredder in the second movie. I found this game to be pretty challenging, but at the same time, I did feel like I had control over how much damage I was taking. When I played well, I wouldn't get hit, and when I didn't play well, I would get hit, so the challenge felt fair. I found that there were ways to beat the bosses and enemies without getting wrecked, and you just had to figure it out, which was cool. But a big nitpick for this game was that the enemies were very repetitive, and by the time I got to the end of the game, I was ready for it to be over. I think we just beat the game. Congratulations. Cowabunga! Number 34, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Hyperstone Heist, released for the Sega Genesis in 1992. In this title, April O'Neil is reporting from Liberty Island when, in a sudden flash of light, she and her audience witness Manhattan Island suddenly starting to shrink. Shredder then hijacks the airwaves and announces to the world that this was only a demonstration of the power of the Hyperstone, the treasure of Dimension X. With the Hyperstone in his possession, he now has the power to take over the world. The Turtles have no choice but to go after Shredder and stop him. The gameplay of the Hyperstone Heist is heavily based on the second TMNT arcade game, Turtles in Time, which was ported to the Super Nintendo during the same year. This game shares nearly the same soundtrack and sound effects as Turtles in Time, but the music plays faster in the Hyperstone Heist, and though there are less than half as many levels as Turtles in Time, each level is longer. Hyperstone Heist has a more aggressive enemy AI and faster moving gameplay. There are a total of 5 levels: New York City, a mysterious ghost ship, Shredder's hideout, the Gauntlet, and the final Shell Shock, which comprise a combination of new levels created specifically for this game and ones based on levels from the first arcade game and Turtles in Time. The bosses in this title include Leatherhead, Rocksteady, Tetsu, Baxter Stockman, Krang, and the Super Shredder. This game felt really good, really fluid, and had some nice variety. The bosses were big and well animated, but they were all a bit easy. This game felt a bit on the short side, and again, not very challenging, especially compared to some of the other titles like the game I just mentioned, Manhattan Project. I still found this to be enjoyable to play, and it's a strong contender for the best Turtles game that I've played, and I'd say it's on par with the Super Nintendo version of Turtles in Time. We did it. We beat the Hyperstone Heist. We did it.
This thing's destroying me. Just so hard to get hits off on it. Oh, we got it.
Number 33, Metal Slug 6, released for the arcades in 2006. This game added 2 new characters to the Metal Slug series, as well as special abilities and different stats for the characters, and one of the characters actually takes 2 hits to kill, which I thought was pretty cool and really makes that character stand out. This title felt quite a bit more difficult than most of the others in the anthology, probably easier only than Metal Slug 3. Due to the weird Wii controls, I could not perform any of the special techniques in this iteration, which was really disappointing.
How do I Falcon Punch? Is there a button that lets me do it? Doesn't seem like it.
The final battle here was pretty unique, and the final boss's death looked pretty cool. I liked how a new alien race was introduced in this game, and the aliens from the previous titles joined you to fight against them. It was pretty epic. I like that a lot. I think this game is worth playing if you want to get into the Metal Slug series. It's definitely worth giving it a shot. It's not the best one, but it's one of the best ones.
That might be it.
We're running out of time. Let's move out. We can't forget our mission.
Number 32, The House of the Dead 3, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2008. The House of the Dead 3 was originally released by Sega to arcades and is the 3rd installment in the main House of the Dead series. Set in a post-apocalyptic 2019, the game follows AMS agent Thomas Rogan's disappearance within the EFI research facility. His daughter Lisa and former partner G set out on a journey to find him.
Can't wait any longer. You ready, Lisa?
I promised Mom that I'd bring him home. Let's go, G.
This game received generally positive reviews with praise for its graphics, but criticism towards its linearity and short length. It was ported to the Xbox, Microsoft Windows, the Nintendo Wii, which is how we played this title, and the PlayStation Network. I found number 3 to be much easier than House of the Dead 2, and much more polished. The voice acting was much better as well. But despite this, the setting was less interesting, the bosses weren't quite as good, and I didn't have as much fun as I did with the second entry. Also, the lower difficulty may have been a double-edged sword here, because I only played through this game twice, and after beating it on the second go, I did not go back to it. House of the Dead 2 took me many tries to beat, so I spent much more time playing it.
Okay, we just gotta believe in ourselves.
Join the party.
Number 31, Gears Tactics, released for the Xbox Series X in 2020. I played every single Gears of War game in 2022, except for this one, and I'm not gonna lie, I was really excited to play it. It was one of the first games that I played this year.
I don't know you, shit.
So this game takes place in the Gears of War universe, but it's like a tactical RPG kind of. The game takes place 12 years before the original Gears of War, centered around a new squad led by Kate Diaz's father, war hero Sergeant Gabriel Diaz.
Eyes open, feet apart. Elbow in.
As he leads the mission to assassinate the locust scientist, Ukon, to prevent his genetically engineered monsters from destroying the last of the human cities following the Hammer of Dawn strikes. This title includes the following classes: Heavy, Scout, Sniper, Support, and Vanguard. This game features these things called cases, which is a progression reward type of system. Cases cannot be bought, they have to be earned by playing through missions. The cases reward the player with equipment that features bonuses like ability buffs and specific weapon modifications. Case items can be common, rare, or epic in ascending levels of power. Better than even epic, legendary equipment can be obtained by completing certain missions. Act bosses here were really well designed and are a highlight for this title. But uninteresting characters and poor character development are present here. For example, Michaela is a pretty cool character, and I think the voice actor did a decent job.
Oh, damn. I bet you get to recruit her. She's like a sniper. Nice.
but she was so one-dimensional, and her character was just very lazily done. I think they could have done a lot more with a character like her. There were some creative mission objectives compared to the Diofield Chronicle and other strategy RPGs that I've played, but the character progression was really poor. And any kind of RPG game that I play, character progression is one of the main things I care about. I found myself dismissing older gears for newer recruits who came in higher leveled pretty consistently. When non-hero gears died, I didn't care at all. By the time I got to the end of the game, my characters were only level 6. So what was the point of grinding when you're just getting higher ranked and higher leveled characters as you progress through the game? There's just no point. The story seemed pretty inconsequential to the larger gears narrative, which was a massive disappointment. When I first heard about this game, I thought it was going to really get deep into the story and build on the world of Gears, but it didn't. A game like this really gave the developers the opportunity to flesh out the world and story, but they treated this narrative like an afterthought. You were also forced to play through tons of these side missions that were just very boring and not interesting to play through at all. It's kind of sad to say, but even if you're a big Gears of War fan, I kind of think this game is worth skipping. I'm sorry.
Oh, doesn't quite look dead.
This club will not take a damn hint!
Definitely gonna get up. No? Come on.
There's another one coming in.
Why not give him a hand?
No time for jokes!
Number 30, Resident Evil: The Dark Side Chronicles, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2009. This game consisted of a retelling of Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil Code Veronica, with some new content consisting of Leon Kennedy and Jack Krauser on this mission in South America, chasing some random dude named Javier and his fireball-slinging daughter. Yo, Leon's trying to make the moves right now? Oh, she's dead. What the hell is that? I found this title to be way better than the Umbrella Chronicles. It was a very solid light gun game on the Wii. There was this shaky camera that was definitely frustrating at times, as it's already difficult to make precision shots with the Wii Zapper, but hit detection on headshots was much more forgiving than the Umbrella Chronicles. There was lots of cool sequences, lots of cool bosses. In my opinion, this game is worth playing. The Resident Evil 2 scenario was especially well done. I loved it. The Code Veronica section left something to be desired though, as it featured some lazy puzzles and abridged storytelling. A viewer of my Twitch channel, this guy Epion, he kept making comments that the person who made the script and designed the story parts of this game for Code Veronica, it was almost like it was like a 5-year-old that once played through or watched someone play through Code Veronica, and it was them just going off of their memory, trying to remember things that happened in the game, and then they put that into the story here in this retelling. There's such a weird redo of the story that makes no sense. It's like a 5-year-old retold it from memory. And the Code Veronica section, it featured these like lazy puzzles, and it wasn't great. I would say that the new content in this game, the Leon Kennedy and Jack Krauser sections, they were the worst part of this game. It was very difficult to care about the bare bones story and the characters there. But still, this game is definitely worth it if you enjoy Wii light gun games. In fact, I would say that if you like playing through the Wii light gun games, this game is not missable. You have to play this game. But again, overall, this was a very fun light gun game. It was very fun. Number 29, Overcooked All You Can Eat, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2021. This was a fun couch co-op puzzle type game. It was excellent when you're playing it co-op. Even playing it solo, it's kind of fun to switch between your cooks back and forth. This game has players doing different styles of prep work and cooking to assemble a variety of meals. The player does things like chop, slice, and dice ingredients. You utilize pots, pans, ovens, fryers, stand mixers, bamboo baskets, grills, blenders, marshmallow roasting sticks, and multi-pans to cook ingredients. The player adds condiments to hot dogs, chops up salads, prepares sushi and sashimi meals, melts s'mores, and does so many other things that's kind of wild. There are some performance problems in this game. It doesn't look very polished, and the game crashed for me constantly. And talking to other people while I was streaming, others were also having the same problem with constant crashes. This game had lots of recipes, interesting stage hazards, and the game was really fresh. I played through so many levels. This game has a metric ton of levels, and I still felt like, even playing through at the very end, they kept things fresh with the different stuff that they throw at you. I played this game last year, and I didn't get very far in it, but this year I sat down and I said to myself, I'm going to complete this game, I'm going to beat every single level. And I did that. I completed every level in this cartridge. It had the entirety of Overcooked 1, Overcooked 2, all of the DLC released for both games, as well as a little bit of content that's specific to Overcooked All You Can Eat. I'd recommend this game if you like catch co-op games, but otherwise, you probably don't need to play it. So we need cucumbers and rice. I'll make the rice.
Oh God.
Get out of my way.
God. Oh, this. Stop.
I need to make rice. Get out of my way. 200X AD. Household robots rock and roll here, created by master robot designer Dr. Light, and we're enjoying your peaceful days. Gotta love the NES cutscenes, right? Number 28, Mega Man 4, released for the NES in 1991. I love the Mega Man games, and I played 3 of them this year. Out of the 3 I played, this was the worst one, but that doesn't mean it's not a good game. It's still a very good game. While not quite as good as Mega Man 2 or 3, which I played last year, this game still had the challenge and the format that I love in the series. This game had great music and some really fun Robot Masters to fight. Robot Masters included in this entry consisted of Bright Man, Toad Man, Drill Man, Pharaoh Man, Ring Man, Dust Man, Dive Man, and Skull Man. This game featured a better final boss than Mega Man 3, and I liked having to fight Dr. Cossack before Dr. Wily. It kind of switched things up a little bit, and it was a little bit different. One more shot, and we beat this game. We beat this game, we hit it one more time. Mega Man 4 down, baby! Woo! 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through a lay, not a creature was fighting, no one in a fray. No stockings were hung by the chimney with care, they all had been naughty, no St. Nicholas there. Cthulhu was nestled all snug in non-Euclidean space, with visions of destruction lighting up his cold face. Number 27, Cthulhu Saves Christmas, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2019. This game featured some pretty standard RPG gameplay, with some twists here and there with the mechanics. You don't need to worry about managing resources from battle to battle in this game, but rather you needed to manage resources in each individual battle. It was a pretty unique system, but easy to get the hang of and pretty fun. The dialogue in this game is hilarious, and it seems like almost every single line in this game is pretty amusing. This game is very, very short. To really experience the full story, you had to play through it twice, and still it was very short. I enjoyed the playable characters, and the League of Christmas Evil characters as well. In Cthulhu Saves Christmas, your cast of playable characters consists of Cthulhu. Well, what's this, a present from Santa? This cannot be. Goodness knows I've been anything but good this year. Originating in the horror tales of H.P. Lovecraft, Cthulhu is an extremely ancient, powerful, and evil being worshipped by a deranged cult for millennia as they await his re-emergence from the depths of the sea. He has appeared in many games in forms both serious and comical. Cthulhu is the most powerful of the great old ones, a race of godlike beings trapped within the earth, who are the enemies of the elder gods. He's described as being gigantic in size, with squid-like tentacles, claws, and wings. Baba Yaga. Speaking of Cthulhu, I found someone who knows where a League of Christmas Evil member is hiding. This is Baba Yaga. I'm Baba Yaga-chan. Pleased to meet you, boss. An evil witch from Eastern European folklore. She lives in a hut with chicken legs and eats children. This character is typically depicted as a cautionary tale for misbehaving children. Crystal, or the Snow Maiden. I am the Snow Maiden, Crystal Claus, defender of the Winter Highlands and spreader of holiday joy. I need your help to rescue my grandfather, Santa Claus. Is a character inspired by Russian folklore from the 19th century. The origin of this character is inconsistent, but she is the granddaughter and helper of Ded Moroz, who is the Russian equivalent of Santa Claus in East Slavic cultures. She wears long silver blue robes and a furry cap or snowflake-like crown. Lastly, there is Belsnickel. This is Belsnickel. Belsnickel from like The Office. Our lawyers have demanded. That's cool. Have demanded that we edit the following conversation. Hey, weren't you on a popular TV show? I love popular TV show, especially when popular TV character does funny things. Who fans of The Office will recognize as a character Dwight roleplayed in one of the show's later Christmas episodes.
Oh, judgment is nigh, for the Belsnickel is I.
Yes, he is finally nigh.
Belsnickel is part of German folklore. The physical description for his character has him wearing furs, typically ragged and disheveled, and carrying a switch, very similar to how Dwight dressed in the Office episode. He checks on the behavior of children, and in the story of Belsnickel, he would sometimes bait children with candies and then strike them with his switch. Your opponents in this title are a group of evildoers called the Christmas League of Evil Villains. These villains consist of Jack Frost, the Mouse King, Mary Lude, Belle, Gryla, Krampus, Nyarlathotep, the Ghost of Christmas Future, and then, after completing the game, you must play through it again for some additional story elements, and the true final boss, which I will not spoil. A lot of love and effort was put into this game, and that really seeped through to the player in an excellent way. If you can get this game on the cheap, I'd say it's worth playing through. I think this game is fairly expensive though. I don't think it's worth it to spend a lot of money on this title, only because of its unfortunate short length. Time to destroy the world. The end. The story continues and Cthulhu saves the world. Start New Game Plus. My power's gone again. Where is it? What's going on? No, this can't be. You wouldn't. What's going on? You monster, you didn't. I did. The dreaded New Game Plus. With the cutscenes on these games, especially since it's NES. And behind this destruction is... Dr. Wily? No. Oh, really cool. Number 26, Mega Man 5, released for the NES in 1992. This title was notable for introducing Beat as Mega Man's robotic bird assistant. I'm not gonna lie, I always enjoyed when new characters got introduced into this series. Robot masters in this game include Gravity Man, Wave Man, Stone Man, Gyro Man, Star Man, Charge Man, Napalm Man, and Crystal Man. The player must also face 4 different versions of a robot called Dark Man, which is a Proto-Man imposter. This game is very similar in quality to Mega Man 4, but it's very slightly better. I found this title to be noticeably harder than Mega Man 4 as well. Some of the robot masters were uninspired in this title, and the fake Proto-Man storyline wasn't explored much and wasn't very interesting. A few robot masters and some of the late game boss fights were especially enjoyable though. Yeah, baby. Mega Man 5 done.
Dragon's Lair, a fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon.
Number 25, Dragon's Lair, released for the arcades in 1983. Like the other 2 games I mentioned in the Dragon's Lair trilogy, Dragon's Lair is an interactive Laserdisc game, and I love the art of this game. I like the challenge. It's just all quick-time events, just like the other 2 games in the Dragon's Lair trilogy that we mentioned. In this game, the protagonist Dirk the Daring is a knight, and he's attempting to rescue Princess Daphne from the evil dragon Singe, who has locked the princess in the foul wizard Mordok's castle. This game featured animation by ex-Disney animator Don Bluth. This game is... it has a lot of charm. The full-motion, cartoony videos showing the different outcomes when you die or when you succeed are really cool to watch. I'll be honest, I had really low expectations coming into this game after seeing gameplay and reading about it, but I was pleasantly surprised. And this game had some really challenging difficulty, which I think was part of the reason why I had such a fun time with it.
Oh no. Oh no! Oh no! Ah. I mean, we still have 2 more lives, but that's a shame. We were at over 200k with no deaths. Attack, down, right. I was playing. Oh no! I just died twice in this easy level. No, we're down to our last life now.
The fantasy setting was really cool, and succeeding in sections that you were struggling in was really, really satisfying. While it's not the best game I've ever played, this game does blow other titles that I played from the early 80s completely out of the water. Honestly, this game brings a lot to the table for the time it was released. Honestly, this game is worth going back to if it's just to say that you beat Dragon's Lair.
Oh, that was it! That was it! We did it! With 1 life! We beat it!
Midgar? Number 24, Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion, released for the Xbox Series X in 2022. Crisis Core Reunion is an HD remaster of Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII, originally released on the PSP in 2007. This game is a prequel to the main Final Fantasy VII game, where you play as Zack Fair, a member of Soldier and the person Cloud Strife wished he could become, before losing his memory during the Nibelheim incident.
Impossible.
Reunion is an action RPG through and through. Zack can swiftly dodge attacks, roll behind enemies for critical hits, sneak in a few sword slashes, and then roll back out of the way to deliver a Faraga Blast, which is super enjoyable and satisfying. I never played the original Crisis Core released on the PSP, even though I do own it. This game is kind of a mixed bag. Well, first off, the battle system was really enjoyable. I liked fighting in this game. That's where I wanted to spend my time. I liked grinding, trying to become more powerful. Oh, those things have some, they got some power to them. One-shotting me. And fusing the different materia together to make these really strong combinations, even though it took me many, many hours. Preparing for the final super secret boss Minerva was really fun, and you need to basically have all maxed out stats and to always deal 9,999 damage on each hit to even have a chance to beat Minerva. So we might do it. Oh, what's your health? What's your health?
Here we go. Bye now.
Oh! Yes! As an optional super boss, I thought that Minerva was a really fun challenge. I found that this game was pretty polished, but it also had a poor story, and I didn't like the format of this game. The side missions were really fun, but the main story I didn't like. And by the way, one of the main characters, Angel, his motivations and his decisions didn't make any sense at all. In fact, most of the characters in this game kind of didn't make sense to me.
Then why'd you send me?
To prepare you for your next fight.
Have you lost it?
The fuck is going? Angel doesn't make any sense at all. Maybe I was missing something, but I don't think so. I think it was just poorly done. Overall, I think this game is probably skippable. The character of Zack is cool, and he's such an important character that didn't get much attention in the original Final Fantasy VII. Unless you just really like grinding and action RPGs. I mean, after all was said and done, when it came to grinding to fight Minerva, that was worth it. The final battle with Minerva was epic and still very difficult, all maxed out and optimized with Zack. But if you don't like that part of the game, you just want to play through this game just to learn about the story, learn about Zack and Sephiroth and all that stuff, I would skip it.
Oh, this looks just like the beginning of 2, except it's at night.
Number 23, Metal Slug X, released for the arcades in 1999. This is a game that I mentioned when I was discussing Metal Slug 2, as it's a remake of Metal Slug 2, but it has enhanced music, enhanced sound effects, there's more enemy types, new weapons, and this is definitely a better version than the original Metal Slug 2 that doesn't have those issues with the frame rate and performance. I think it's a great game, and if you wanted to jump into the series, I think Metal Slug X would be an acceptable place to do that.
waiting for is you, so don't expect me to make excuses if we're still working tonight.
Number 22, Dead Space Extraction, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2009. Dead Space Extraction is a rail shooter, co-developed by EA, Redwood Shores, and Eurocom, and published by EA. Not really a company that I'm a huge fan of, but this title is a spin-off within the Dead Space series and a prequel to the original game. The story follows survivors from the Aegis 7 mining colony as the planet and newly arrived ship USG Ishimura are overrun by deadly monsters called necromorphs.
You seriously think the bridge is still safe?
Only
No.
one way to find out.
Probably not. Very cool game.
Go, go!
It is said that EA treated this game as a test for mature games in the Wii gaming market. The aim was to create a survival horror experience within the genre and hardware limitations of the Wii. The original release met with poor sales but good reviews, with critics praising its gameplay and use of the Dead Space setting while faulting pacing issues and a lack of content. The campaign is split into 10 chapters, and the main enemies of the game, necromorphs, can only be killed by severing their limbs. This game features 10 weapons with 2 different firing modes per gun, giving the game a bit of variety. Players also have access to 2 abilities, Stasis, which slows object motion for a short time, and Kinesis, which allows the player character to pick up and throw or move objects, which is a personal favorite of mine and really makes this game stand out in the genre for me. I didn't have very high hopes for this game. I wasn't expecting a lot out of it, but I will say it has a surprising amount of depth in the gameplay here with some of the things that you can do and some of the mechanics you can utilize. This game had excellent world building as well for this type of game, as I never really got into the Dead Space series, and I felt like in this game you really get a good feel for it. Oh god. I found this game to be suspenseful, well polished, and I loved climbing through the air ducts in the pitch black with a flamethrower. It kind of was akin to the movie Aliens. I don't know, I think this game is worth playing. If you like those light gun Wii games, this is definitely a game you shouldn't skip. Nice. Get him. Go get him. Lord of Hatred Mephisto, the Lord of Destruction Baal, and the Lord of Terror Diablo.
Blessed Mother.
Number 21, Diablo 4. Released for the Xbox Series X in 2023. This was a return to form for the Diablo series, with darker graphics similar to Diablo 1 and 2, rather than those lame, cartoony style graphics of Diablo 3 that was trying to be like World of Warcraft in the way it looked. The progression system and gameplay here felt fine, pretty decent. One of my big gripes with Diablo 3, which was a game I didn't like, was I didn't like the progression system and the way that they did the skills there. But in this game, I kind of liked the way that they did skill trees here. I thought it was serviceable. This game featured awesome cutscenes, especially towards the end of the game. Oh boy, they were awesome. And that's something that you really come to expect from the Diablo series. Even Diablo 3 had some pretty cool cutscenes. The story was okay, but there was lots of NPCs and towns. Almost too many, to the point where I was kind of forgetting which town was which and which NPC was which, and that's not really a good thing. But to be fair, I did take a long break from this game. There were some issues where I couldn't log on for a couple days, and I moved on to playing East Origin, and I didn't come back to this game for like many months. So then when I came back, I kind of forgot what was going on. So I can't 100% blame the developers for the story here. Some of that might be on me. Something that I noticed in this game is that you constantly have NPC companions with you during the main quest, and I often felt that the story in this game was just about those NPCs, and that your character was kind of just along for the ride as hired muscle, and was just not as important as the other characters. I didn't try any of the post-game. Maybe I'll give some of that content a try next year, but I just wasn't really gripped too much by this title, and I was ready for it to be over by the time I finished. I would like to try out some of the other characters. I played through this game as a druid. I played through initially as a werebear druid. Then I kind of transitioned over to being an elemental spellcaster druid, and then I transitioned back to being a werebear pulverized druid. So I don't know, I'd like to try out some of the other character classes one day and get back into this game. Again, this game was good, well polished. It wasn't a bad game. It was definitely a good game, but it wasn't one of the best games that I played this year.
Vani, it's me. I brought your child into this world.
Shit. Cool.
Honey, I know you're on edge, but you gotta calm down, okay?
I am not on edge, Max. I'm freaking the fuck out.
It was probably just an animal or something.
No, it wasn't an animal. You didn't see it. It was a woman.
Lord, this isn't helping, all right?
Number 20, The Quarry, released for the Xbox Series X in 2022. Here's another title by Supermassive Games, although it doesn't have the Dark Pictures Anthology seal on it. I found that this game had great music. I love the music here. It was very polished. Some of the scenes here were really awesome and well developed. They seemed inspired, kind of like the scenes in Until Dawn.
Stop.
Easy pickings. Right off the bone.
What?
This isn't you. I mean, this isn't you.
Oh shit! And I will say though that this game was very light on exploration, and platforming here was non-existent. There was a single puzzle in this game which involved solving the password on this old PC to get access to files, and once your character figures it out, she immediately puts the password into the computer without you even having to do anything, which I think took away a little bit of your agency.
Oh, I'd have to. That's lame.
Yeah.
I'd have to memorize it. She just automatically did it.
This game still has QuickTime events like the other titles, but it didn't seem to rely on them as heavily. This game seemed more like a choose-your-own-adventure style game, and more of a just like an interactive movie, even more so than some of the other Dark Pictures games I mentioned in the past. The tension in this game and the environments were really well done, and I found I cared a great deal about some of the characters and the story here. I kind of want to play this game again because I failed to find the White Wolf, the werewolf that started it all in this title. I wasn't able to find that character. I did beat the game. I had characters that survived till the end. I did technically beat it, but this game features multiple endings, and I didn't get the best ending. And I think I will go back to this game one day. Maybe even next year, next Halloween, possibly.
Oh, the motion sensor. Something's there. Oh, that's so cool.
God damn it, Hugo, snap out of it already. If you let this take over, you're screwed. Number 19, Ys Origin, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2020. This was the only Ys game I played this year, even though I had intentions to play several of them. I found the format for this game to be strange. It's an action RPG like the previous Ys games I've played, but in this title, the player is stuck in a single dungeon-like tower for the entirety of the adventure. A small number of cutscenes took place outside the tower, but otherwise, the inside of the tower is the only thing the player will see. There are 3 playable characters in this game: Unikatova, a young sword fighter, Hugo Fact, a mage, and the Claw, who fights with claws. This title contains some truly beautiful FMVs, but there are very few of them. The vast majority of the story is told through in-game dialogue and cutscenes. Speaking of the dialogue, the script was really boring for Unika's playthrough. I found the story and dialogue were far more interesting for Hugo. This game is a prequel, taking place 700 years before the first Ys title. Present are many references to Ys 1 and 2, which I thought was pretty cool. There are 6 major families in Ys, and in Ys 1, the main antagonist is a man from the Fact family, Dark Fact. In this sequel, there are multiple characters from the Fact family who play a role in the story, some friends and some enemies. Fact has no need for those who beg for treats and wag their tails like pathetic little puppy dogs. The gameplay, progression, and exploration in this title are generally enjoyable. A highlight here is the multitude of giant boss battles. Some of these fights have some deep mechanics, and each one of them is quite the spectacle. Here we go. Mr. X, the sponsor of the tournament, took control of the robots and began to take over the world. Mega Man, Mr. X something. Mr. X, it's time to tell you the truth. I've been manipulating that fool Dr. Wily from the beginning. Number 18, Mega Man 6, released for the NES in 1993. Mega Man 6 was the best Mega Man game I played this year. I would say it's not as good as 2 and 3, which I played last year, but it was the best one from this year for sure. This game had a lackluster opening cutscene and was much less spectacular than the opening scenes for Mega Man 4 and 5, but it did give you a pretty interesting premise for the game. This title featured interesting robot masters with colorful, unique levels. Robot masters in this title include Blizzard Man, Centaur Man, Flame Man, Night Man, Plant Man, Tomahawk Man, Wind Man, and Yamato Man. Your canine companion Rush was implemented in a new way here, and I like the way they handled him. In my opinion, the weapons that you obtained from the Robot Masters were mostly really useful, much more so than the previous Mega Man games. In the previous games, I felt like usually when you'd obtain weapons from Robot Masters, they'd mostly be useless except for a couple. But in this game, I found that most of them had a use, which I think was why I ranked this game as my favorite for the year. If you want to dive into the Mega Man series and the old NES titles, I'd recommend starting with 2 and 3, but I would say that this one would be the next one you'd want to play if you like those games. Triumphant at last, Mega Man arrested notorious Dr. Wily and brought him to justice.
I love this game. It's good. It's good.
hard.
It's just so hard, man.
Number 17, The House of the Dead 2, released for the Nintendo Wii in 2008. I've got to say that the difficulty in this game was insane. I had a very hard time playing through this title. But there's a silver lining there though. As I explored the boss mode, training mode, and searched for secrets in order to find a way to win, I got many hours of gameplay into this light gun game. I even invited a bunch of my friends over, and we took turns trying to beat it.
Hierophant. Hero.
I had a lot of fun playing through this game and struggling to beat it. Like, that's, I don't know, I dig it. The voice acting was hilarious bad here, but most of the scenes were memorable and cool, and to be honest, really charming. This game is more or less the perfect length, and each boss fight was a blast. If you're gonna try out a light gun game on the Wii, I would start with this one right here, House of the Dead 2.
I've been waiting for you, friends.
Goldman! Do you know what you're
Voice
doing?
acting's incredible.
I'm fully aware of what I'm doing. Can't you see?
Blue Creek Apartment, that might be what that key was for that place. Number 16, Silent Hill 2, released for the Sony PlayStation 2 in 2001. I did beat this game as a teenager, and it was probably one of the first games I purchased for myself. It's a horror game, but it's not too similar to Resident Evil, even though it gets compared to Resident Evil a lot. It has this creepy, ominous atmosphere, and tank controls that take a bit to get used to. I found this game was fun to explore, with this spooky, mysterious environment. Random NPCs were hanging out in this ghost town full of monsters, which I found kind of strange, and sometimes the NPCs seemed a little bit out of place. For example, Eddie eating pizza in this dilapidated bowling alley kind of hurt the immersion a bit. How did he get pizza? Everything is spoiled, rotten, and old in this place, and he suddenly has this full pizza pie that he's scarfing down. Where the hell did he get that from? One of the negatives in this game was the hit detection when you're searching for items. Let's say I'm trying to figure out where to go, and I see on this desk, pen or something on a desk. I walk right up to the desk and I try to interact with the pen and try to take it. And I'm trying from all these different angles and I can't pick it up. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm not supposed to do that. Then I would leave and try to figure out where to go, get lost, look at a guide, and it will direct me back to that pen that I couldn't pick up because it's a hit detection. I'm pressing the button trying to pick up the pen, but I have to be in this exact right angle, this exact right spot to pick it up. Something I liked about this game a lot is that it had a very sad story that makes you think, even after you figure out what's going on. Like I said, I played this game before and I somewhat remembered the story twist here, but still it made me think a lot, and I genuinely felt sad for the main character and the other characters as well. If you've never played Silent Hill 2 before, I would recommend giving it a shot, especially around Halloween time. I think it's a game that you should play, especially if you like horror games.
I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real.
This is a really cool game. It's hard. Much harder than what I was used to in the series. I was dying like there were points where I was dying every few steps.
Number 15, Metal Slug 3, released for the arcades in the year 2000. Here we go. My favorite Metal Slug game on the anthology. This game was a blast. It was longer and more difficult than the previous games. It had these awesome horizontal shooter sections and well fleshed out vertical shooter sections as well. As you progress through this title, things just get more and more epic. You end up battling these aliens in outer space, and the final sequences in this title are just thrilling and really enjoyable. It's my favorite game in the series. If you're gonna play Metal Slug and you don't know where to start, I recommend this game. Give it a shot, you will love it.
It's like really long. Multiple bosses. I'd say at least 3 bosses.
Some parts of this game may be considered violent or cruel. I'm already liking that. Number 14, Silent Hill 3, released for the Sony PlayStation 2 in 2003. Most won't agree with me on this, but I actually preferred 3 over 2. The story here is definitely less thought-provoking than Silent Hill 2, I'll give you that. And the game does start a bit slow and uninteresting during the shopping center sections and the subway sections, but it really picks up once you actually reach the town of Silent Hill. Ammo and healing is more scarce here than it was in Silent Hill 2, which forces you to run around more and to take the combat here as more of a threat. But I found this to be a positive, not a negative. I was afraid of the monsters. I tried to avoid the monsters because I knew I was limited in ammo and whatnot. I found this title to be very gory and incredibly morbid. It was spooky, and some sections were just awesome, like the haunted house section in the amusement park. I love that.
Welcome to the Borley Haunted Mansion.
I guess I was in the wrong door.
We're so glad you came.
I thought that was so cool. I found that the bosses here were much better than the bosses in Silent Hill 2. This game features awesome puzzles, and this game definitely felt more like Resident Evil than Silent Hill 2, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. I would also say that Silent Hill 3 is the scariest game I've ever played in my life. It had the best scares of any game ever. And not just cheap jump scares, but atmospheric scares, tension building scares. I highly recommend you play this game. Oh shit!
That's Danny.
That's awesome! That looks beautiful. Looks absolutely beautiful. Number 13, Super Mario RPG, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2023. The Mario franchise has always held a special place in my heart, and Super Mario RPG is easily one of the most unique adventures, uniting Square and Nintendo in creating a traditional RPG game starring 3 of the most notable characters from the series, Mario, Peach, and Bowser, along with 2 characters unique to this title, Mallow and Geno. This remake is an incredibly faithful recreation of that already awesome RPG, with a fresh coat of paint and some minor updates. As the story starts, Mario rushes to Bowser's Keep to save Princess Peach like usual, but before they can return home happily ever after, a giant sword with a face crashes through the castle roof and sends all 3 of them flying. As the game progresses, the player learns that Mario and his party must unite to defeat the Smithy Gang and collect all the star pieces to save the kingdom. Super Mario RPG's combat is extremely straightforward, pitting your party of 5 against standard Mario Bros. Enemies, as well as some new unique opponents. This title uses timing-based button prompts, allowing you to deal some extra damage or reduce damage taken, which is pretty engaging. Button timings give a bigger bonus than they did in the SNES original, and for a super precise button press, even adding a splash damage effect. Chaining together well-timed presses also fills up a gauge to use on powerful new triple moves, each of which comes with an awesome 3D cutscene. Now, I beat the original Super Nintendo version when I was in middle school, and I remember loving it, but I don't really remember too much else about this game. I found this game to be very pleasant and enjoyable. I think that this game would be a good RPG game for children to play and to get their feet wet in the genre. All 5 party members here have their uses, and the ability to swap them out was pretty fun. The story was cute, the characters are cute. I did feel that this game was a bit too short, but the remake did add a little bit of fluff with the triple attacks and a post-game super boss. In fact, several post-game bosses, which I played through and defeated all of them. I recommend this title. I think it's a great game and definitely worth playing. Number 12, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Shredder's Revenge, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2022. This was the best Ninja Turtles game I've ever played in my life. I thought this game was fantastic, and I had a hard time not including it on my top 10 list for this year, but unfortunately some other titles did knock it slightly out of the top 10. I would say that after playing through a good quantity of Turtles games this year, this title really stuck out as something special. I played through this game with my friend Don, and we were both really impressed with all the small touches and the quality of life aspects of Shredder's Revenge. And this was Don's second time playing it. He's actually played this title before. This game was pretty longish for this genre, and it had some light RPG elements, which I appreciated. Some of the different enemies required some thought and tactics to take down. The playable characters, of which there are several, including unlockables and a secret character, each have quite an arsenal, and you can approach battles in different ways with the various characters. Speaking of the characters, they have different stats and movesets, and each feel really unique. After completing this game, I felt as though this was the greatest Ninja Turtles game I've ever played, as I said. The levels are really cool, and Super Shredder has this awesome transformation in the final battle. It kind of gave me nostalgia. It reminded me of the second Ninja Turtles movie, when the Turtles had their final showdown with Super Shredder, and they never really get to fight him. The dock collapses on him, and you don't really get to see what he could do. In this game, you do get to see what he does. Many, many, many years later, decades later after that movie comes out, I feel like you finally got that showdown with Super Shredder that, as a child, I really craved to see. Oh no, the ooze! We're getting Super Shredder. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, baby. Super Shredder, raging for revenge. What are we gonna do here? I can't believe I played this game for 25 hours. Clearly I haven't been enjoying it. Wait, suspend the warp. Now. Number 11. Pikmin 4, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2023. In Pikmin 4, gamers create and play as a customizable captain, going on an adventure to find stranded castaways, treasure to make sparklium fuel, and most importantly, to save Captain Olimar. The player has a new canine companion by the name of Owachi, who acts like a secondary leader and Pikmin at the same time. Pikmin 4 takes place after the bad alternate ending of Pikmin 1 in an alternate universe, which I did not realize when I first played through the game. Captain Olimar crash lands on a mysterious planet, finding the little workers called Pikmin, as well as a strange dog-like creature which he names Moss. Olimar transmits an SOS signal, and the rescue corps go to investigate. However, they also crash, meaning that the player must rescue the rescue corps alongside Captain Olimar and other castaways. 2 new Pikmin types are introduced in Pikmin 4. Ice Pikmin are able to freeze enemies in water. Glow Pikmin, on the other hand, are encountered during night expeditions and can be summoned in caves using glow seeds. This game also reintroduces Purple Pikmin, White Pikmin, Rock Pikmin, and Winged Pikmin, meaning that every Pikmin type, aside from Bulbmin and Mushroom Pikmin, appears in Pikmin 4. The player's Pikmin are able to break down obstacles and build structures with a new system involving raw material. Despite this game being quite long, there's a lot here to keep things fresh, such as Dandori battles, night expeditions, dungeon-like caves, and post-game challenges. This is another game that I really wanted to include in my top 10, and for the longest time had it listed in my top 10, but unfortunately it just got knocked out at number 11. I found this game to be very slow to start, with tons and tons of tutorials and text boxes before you were able to pick up any momentum and really get into the game. But that being said, once things get rolling, the gameplay is addictive and it's tough to stop playing. I played this game for many hours. I think I clocked probably around 40 hours or so with this game, and it's not an RPG game, it's just like an adventure exploration game, item collecting game. I had a great time. At first, I didn't care much about getting upgrades and finding the new Pikmin types, but as I got more experience with this title, I became super pumped whenever I could upgrade my character or my pup, and aspects of this game became much more complex in a great way, but it was gradual, the complexity of this game. It just gradually introduced new mechanics and new things to you. Despite sinking a tremendous number of hours into this title, I don't regret any of it. Yes. Bam. Yeah, so this is big on like decisions. Decisions that you make can alter the story, can change, can make characters die, can make characters live. Number 10, Until Dawn, released for the PS4 in 2015. Until Dawn is an interactive drama survival horror adventure game developed by Supermassive Games and published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. In Until Dawn, Josh and his twin sisters, Hannah and Beth, invite their collective friends to the Washington Lodge on Blackwood Mountain for their annual winter getaway. During their celebrations, some of the group conspire to play a prank on Hannah, who's romantically interested in Mike. You look so damn hot in that shirt, but I bet you're even hotter out of it. Come to my guest room at 2 a.m., Mike. Essentially, Hannah is tricked into undressing and gets embarrassed in front of all of her friends. Hannah runs out of the lodge and into the snowy woods as everyone runs after her, trying to apologize and convince her to come back. Both Hannah and her sister Beth go missing in the wilderness. On the 1-year anniversary of the disappearance of Hannah and Beth, the remaining 7 friends accept Josh's invitation back to the mountain and they make their way there. As the group separates to partake in their own festivities and adventures, their seemingly idyllic getaway begins to quickly turn sinister in more ways than one. Stop being a bitch, do it! Oh, fuck! Until Dawn is designed to be played multiple times, as players cannot see all content with a single playthrough. Each playthrough will last about 7 to 9 hours in length, and the game mechanics utilize an in-game system called the butterfly effect, in which any choice by the player may cause unforeseen consequences later on. Throughout the game, players will make difficult decisions during ethical or moral dilemmas, such as sacrificing one character to save another. The butterfly effect system blurs the line between right and wrong decisions, and it is possible for players to keep all 8 characters alive, as well as having all 8 of them die, allowing for many different paths and scenarios, as well as offering several different endings for each character. Until Dawn has a strict autosave system to prevent players from reloading a previous save file to an earlier point in the game if they regret an in-game decision that they have made. The developers have stated that Until Dawn has hundreds of endings, quote unquote. Different endings have different variations depending on the combination of characters alive at the end of the game and the decisions that you've made. The gameplay is focused on exploration, quick-time events, and discovering clues as well as making decisions. Hayden Panettiere, the actress who played the cheerleader character Claire in the series Heroes, voiced the character Sam in this title, and she did a stellar job. In fact, all the voice actors were fantastic in this dialogue-heavy romp. This title really stands out, as the cast of characters were excellent compared to other Supermassive Games releases, especially my hero Mike, who I was a big fan of when I played through this game. Until Dawn has a cool story twist that made sense, and it wasn't an ass pull coming out of nowhere like some of the other games. The world building was effective here, and the environment and locations were immersive. I really felt like I was inside of a horror film. Unlike many horror games, this one is legitimately scary and intense at times, despite being a little bit of a slow start, as is typical in this style of gameplay.
Oh my god!
I guess that was the wrong move. Until Dawn boasts some seriously memorable scenes and sequences, like the Ouija board scene and the cell phone through the window scene. You could tell this game was made with love, care, and the scenes and sequences were truly inspired. The movement and exploration sections did feel a bit shallow and restrictive though, but the positives in this title far outweigh the negatives. Something I was thinking about when I finished this game is that I would have liked for the Wendigo to impersonate one of the characters. It was inferred earlier in the game that the creature could do that, and in Wendigo and Skinwalker lore, they can do that. But overall, I think this is a great game, a great horror experience, and to anyone that's looking for something scary to play, I heavily recommend Until Dawn. It is an excellent thing to experience. Yeah. Oh shit!
That should be it for the level. Crushed that level. We crushed it. It was, I mean, compared to the last level, that was so easy.
Number 9, Ape Escape. Released for the PlayStation 1 in 1999. This is a 3D platformer, and even though I've said in the past that 3D platformers are my least favorite type of game, there are a couple 3D platformers in my top 10, and Ape Escape is one of them. I love the format of this game. That's part of what I like so much here. It is a little bit akin to another great 3D platformer, Super Mario 64. In Super Mario 64, you jump in and out of levels, obtaining stars to get to the next part of the game. Ape Escape is kind of like that, but let me explain how it works a little bit. So, on your first playthrough, a player gets a set number of monkeys that they have to catch before progressing towards the next level. Once each level's been completed, they can re-enter the previous levels with gadgets that are necessary to catch remaining monkeys that they missed. You don't have to re-enter levels to complete the main story like you do in Super Mario 64, but you must capture all monkeys if you want to do the secret final boss battle with Spectre and receive the true Ape Escape ending, which I highly recommend doing. I played a bit of Ape Escape 2 previously with my daughters, so I was expecting this game to be fun for a bit, but I massively underestimated this game. Sure, the earlier levels were a bit less smooth with less impressive cutscenes in Ape Escape 2, and slightly worse controls in Ape Escape 2, which was on the PlayStation 2, but that being said, in the later levels, where I was expecting a difficult slog, were actually great. Most of the late levels were a marvel in level design, and some really fun boss fights and mechanics were introduced. It wasn't very fun to control the rowboat and the tank in this game, however, but at least the developers tried some things to keep things interesting. I also think it's worth mentioning that this game has a little bit of historical significance, as it was the first PlayStation game to require the use of a DualShock or dual analog controller. The left stick moves the character, and the right stick operates whichever gadget the character has in his possession. That might sound like a pretty typical control scheme nowadays, but back then it was pretty innovative. There were many highlights in this title. I would say that there was one moment in particular when I just realized, wow, I'm loving this game. In the later parts of the title, the professor and your female partner Natalie get kidnapped, and you have to visit this amusement park to save them. While rescuing the professor, you battle this clown boss on top of this Hell in the Cell type structure, and the clown has two boss phases. After you defeat the first phase, the ceiling of the cell collapses, and you have to battle the second phase, while the professor, who is trapped inside the cage, runs around for cover. This section of the game was just really fun and well designed, and I appreciated how much effort and love went into it. Ape Escape gadgets and mechanics progress as the game goes along, making control of your character a little deeper as you get further into the game. This is a cool part of game progression that older games used to have, and that I miss in newer games. Although Pikmin 4 did have something kind of like this. This game slowly introduced new mechanics and increases the difficulty as you progress through it, in a very appropriate way. Is Ape Escape on the level of a Metal Gear Solid or Final Fantasy VII for the PS1? No, it isn't, but I still think it's one of the best PS1 games I've ever played, and I highly recommend that you play it.
Oh, you won't beat me! Don't be so sure, Spectre. Here I come.
Bowser's Rage Stage. Wahaha. All audience members, please make your way to the main stage. Let's do it! Number 8, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2023. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the first traditional side-scrolling Super Mario game since New Super Mario Bros. U in 2012. The player controls Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, Princess Daisy, Yellow and Blue Toads, Toadette, Nabbit, and 4 types of Yoshis as they attempt to stop Bowser, who plots to take over a new land known as the Flower Kingdom after using the magical Wonder Flower to fuse himself with the kingdom's castle. New power-ups in this title consist of a fruit that transforms the player into an elephant, a flower that allows the player to create bubbles that capture enemies, and a mushroom that gives the player a drill hat that allows him to burrow into the ground or ceiling. This game also introduces the Wonder Flower, which triggers bizarre effects such as pipes coming to life, hordes of enemies spawning, and character appearances and abilities changing. The effects end when a player collects a Wonder Seed or leaves the area of effect. A new feature allows players to equip badges which are unlocked throughout the game and grant different abilities and skills to the player. I wasn't expecting a lot in this game, but I found that the story and setting was pretty unique for a Mario game. I enjoyed the different level types, the new power-ups, and there was some excellent level design that really kept the game fresh. I didn't feel like too many levels were similar to each other. This title was highly polished with the typical high quality that you can expect from a first-party Nintendo game, especially of the Mario IP. The gameplay was addictive, and I found it really hard to stop playing. I felt like I played this non-stop until I finished it. As a little kid, I always loved the Mario titles, and I played the hell out of them on the NES. I gotta say, playing this game felt like home. It felt nostalgic. I felt nostalgia for a game I never played before. I highly recommend this, especially if you're looking for something new. Did we do it? We did it! Look at the production value. Keep in mind, this is an 8-bit NES game. How many NES games had this kind of polish? Even compared to Castlevania 2. During 15th century Europe, there lived a person named Dracula. Number 7. Castlevania 3: Dracula's Curse, released for the NES in 1990. I've played this title a few times over the last few years, but the insane difficulty always forced me to quit. Wow. Oh no. Oh, come on. That was dumb. This is Endara Gaming, where we beat the games, and I decided that I was going to stream this game and play it to beat it. No matter how long it took, no matter how many attempts, I would complete this game. So playing through it, I made some observations. It's much more polished and of much higher quality than Castlevania 2, which is towards the bottom of this list. There was multiple paths and 4 playable characters, each with a much different style. Playable characters in this title consist of Trevor Belmont, armed with a whip and playing like a typical Belmont character in the series. Syphil Belnades, a young sorceress with poor physical attack power but powerful elemental magic spells at her disposal. Fans of the Netflix show should recognize this character. Grant Dynasty, a pirate with the ability to climb on walls and change direction in mid-jump. And Alucard, Dracula's son, who has the ability to shoot fireballs and transform into a bat. Trevor can be accompanied by only one companion at a time. If he chooses to take on another, he must abandon his current companion. The player can spiritually transform between Trevor and his ally with the select button. This game obviously featured awesome boss fights, which you should expect from a Castlevania game. Bosses in this game include the Skull Knight, Possessed Grant, Vampire Bat, Alucard, Skull Knight King, Bone Dragon King, Cyclops, Echidna, Frankenstein's Monster, Water Serpents, the Mummies, the Gargoyle, Death, who has 2 separate forms and was the most difficult boss for us when we played the first Castlevania game 2 years ago, a doppelganger of whichever character you're playing. I found this boss fight to be very, very difficult because it comes at the end of the extremely challenging Stage 9 in this game. And then Dracula himself, who has 3 separate forms that you must fight consecutively. The environments were fantastic, the music was great, and I would say that this is my favorite Castlevania on the NES, even though Castlevania 1 is also an excellent game. This title featured mind-blowing difficulty, especially in Stage 9, which it took me hours and hours and hours of replaying it to actually finish. Final battle with Dracula in Stage 10 was also the type of stage that just made me want to tear my hair out in frustration. Despite this, I love this game. It was so fun. If you were looking for a challenging retro game, obviously I would point to Punch-Out, and I would also point to Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, which I found to be kind of a similar difficulty to Punch-Out, as one of the harder games I've ever managed to beat. I've read some people online saying that they were never able to complete this game from being kids all the way up until now. On Endara Gaming, we played it, we beat it, and I recommend you try it too. That's pretty cool, pretty creepy. Number 6, Luigi's Mansion 3, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2019. I received this game as a Christmas gift on the year it released, and I've been putting off playing it for forever. This title has the player, as Luigi, exploring a large hotel with 17 floors. Each floor consists of a different theme and atmosphere, and a variety of ghosts, including a boss ghost that the player must defeat. The player only has access to new floors by locating numbered buttons that can be inserted into empty slots in the hotel's elevator. Luigi's Mansion 3 incorporates new features, including additional moves for ghost catching, an ectoplasmic doppelganger assistant known as Gooigi, and expanded multiplayer functionality. Gooigi can conduct similar moves to those of his real counterpart, and can be controlled by the player, switching back and forth between Luigi and Gooigi, or by a second player in local co-op. Gooigi can be used by the player to help in battles, and with solving some of the game's puzzles, some of which require the use of Gooigi and Luigi to complete. Unlike Luigi, Gooigi can squeeze through gaps in vents and grills, and walk across spiked floors, but he's weaker than his real counterpart, and will instantly lose his physical form if he comes into contact with fire or water. I didn't expect much from this game. I remember liking Luigi's Mansion 1 a lot, but reading a little bit about it and about Gooigi and all that, I thought it was going to be a pain in the ass type game to get through, but I was wrong. It was an excellent game. In this title, Luigi has considerably more options and ways to solve puzzles than he did in the first Luigi's Mansion game. I really liked all the options and all the different ways you had to try to figure out how to finish rooms, complete puzzles, and whatnot. There were some really creative boss fights, and as I said before, the puzzles were creative and took some thinking to get through. This title had tons of charm and personality, and the game honestly looked beautiful with colorful settings and lots of little details. I would say this title looks better than some of the games being released in 2023 on the Switch. The story was kind of weak, but the gameplay was so fun and so addicting that it completely made up for it. If I was to come up with a small list of must-play games on the Nintendo Switch, this would definitely be on the list. Boom, boom, that should be it. Yeah. That's a lot of work. I would get the 2 warp whistles in World 1, and then I would beat World 2 for a particular power-up that I would use to help me get past one of the really hard levels in the last world. Then I would use the warp whistle trick to warp all the way to the final world. Number 5, Super Mario Bros. 3, released for the NES in 1988. Super Mario Bros. 3 has a special place in my heart, as I played it over and over and over again as a young child. The core mechanics in this series were improved upon here, and this title featured expanded levels, several new power-ups, new enemies and bosses, a more fleshed out multiplayer mode, which is still fun to this day, a world map, and many optional levels and secrets. This game has gone on to become one of the most influential titles in all of 2D gaming. I loved the minigames, and when playing multiplayer, it was always a fun competition to see who got to play the matching games, enter the toad houses, and obtain the warp whistles. Super Mario Bros. 3 has received near universal critical acclaim since its release, and it is one of the best-selling NES and Super Mario games of all time. this game has received several re-releases on other platforms, including full remakes for the Super Nintendo compilation game Super Mario All-Stars, and on the Game Boy Advance as Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3. It's also featured on all of Nintendo's Virtual Console services, as well as Nintendo Switch Online. For my playthrough, I played the Super Mario All-Stars version released for the Super Nintendo, with some updated graphics and backgrounds. That game was re-released for the Wii as Super Mario All-Stars 25th Anniversary Edition, which was what I played on my Wii U. In this Mario iteration, Bowser sent his 7 children to make mischief in the normally peaceful Mushroom World. They stole royal magic wands from each country in the Mushroom World and used them to turn the world's kings into animals. Mario and Luigi must recover the royal magic wands from Bowser's 7 kids to return the kings to their true forms.
Right in your hand, buddy. Oh, thank heavens, I'm back to my old self again. Thank you so much. Here is a letter from the princess.
As a kid, I used to abuse the warp whistles and some other power-ups to skip most of the game and quickly complete it. For my 2023 playthrough, I did something a little different. Not only did I refuse to use warp whistles, but I beat every single level in the game. In all my playthroughs of Super Mario Bros. 3, I never beat the World 8 Fortress, as I always used the Cloud power-up to skip it. But this time, I grabbed a guide, hunkered down, and lost a tremendous number of lives trying to figure out this non-linear, tricky level, eventually beating it. Speaking of which, some of the level design in the later levels was very clever and required some puzzle solving, which I didn't really remember from my childhood. Again, probably since I skipped most of those levels. I ranked this title based on my experience with it this year, and this is a game I've played easily over 100 times in my life, so the 5 spot on this list is a little disingenuous, since this game is probably in my top 10 all-time games list. Super Mario Bros. 3 has epic challenge, great boss fights, smart level design, smooth controls, and is simply one of the best games ever made.
Bam! Resonance. This game has like upgradable weapons and stuff like that from what I remember. Fusion. Awesome boss fights. Resident Evil / Silent Hill style like exploration and puzzle solving. I remember this game just being awesome. Number 4, Parasite Eve, released for the PlayStation 1 in 1998. Parasite Eve is an American biological horror-themed, turn-based action RPG video game developed and published by Squaresoft. This game is a detached, unauthorized sequel to the novel Parasite Eve, which was written by Hideaki Senna. Senna has since written that he had no input on this video game. The story follows an intelligent, half-white, half-Japanese New York City police officer named Aya Brea, and her struggle against an ancient evil called Eve, threatening humanity, animals, and all life forms on Earth. The horrifying bond between Aya and Eve will continue until one of them dies. The player, as Aya Brea, must hunt down the biological entity known as Eve, as well as mutated monsters along the way. The player must upgrade Aya's weapons, as well as hidden mitochondrial powers to save New York City. Parasite Eve takes place over a 6-day span in NYC in 1997. The incident starts on December 24th and ends on December 29th. This game kicks off with an awesome opening sequence that kinda spooked me as a kid. Aya, the NYPD rookie, is attending an opera at Carnegie Hall. While watching the show, the lead actress locks eyes with Aya, and suddenly, the cast and many spectators spontaneously combust into flames. Bam! Great way to start a game and get you right into the action. Aya eventually learns that a mutated strain of sentient mitochondria has awakened and is attempting to seize control over all humanity. In battles, Aya uses upgradable firearms and armor, parasite energy special attacks, and standard RPG-style health items and power-ups. The player has an active time bar while fighting that sets the time for each turn to take an action. If the player chooses to attack,
A dome symbolizing the range of Aya's weapon appears. If the enemy is outside of the range, the shot is likely to fail, and even if the shot lands, the damage will be less than normal. When the player decides to use Parasite Energy, they must choose from this menu of desired PE skills. Parasite Energy is slowly recharged over time while fighting. When not in battle, the player has the option of altering the weapon and armor attributes and effects with tools and super tools. The player selects the tune-up feature, choosing the weapon that will be altered and the weapon from which the attributes or effect will be taken. One of the principal RPG elements of this game is that experience-based levels are present. Each time the player's level increases, their attributes go up, and bonus points are given. These points can be distributed to the ATB, item capacity, or attributes of a weapon or armor. After completing the game for the first time, the player can access the X game, which is a new game plus type of mode. The main reason to do this is to take on the randomized and incredibly challenging Chrysler Building dungeon. I spent most of my overall time with this game in the Chrysler Building post-game dungeon, and it was a lot of fun to grind and take on the many challenges within. The Chrysler Building allows the player the chance to save only once out of every 10 floors, and only after defeating a boss. The items, weapons, power-ups, and enemies are generally of a higher class in the Chrysler Building. The best items, armors, and weapons are found in this 77-floor dungeon. The boss of floor 77 is the true final boss of the game and gives the player a different ending from the main game. Something I learned from one of my viewers, Epion, during my playthrough is that runs of Parasite Eve become extremely popular in December due to the setting of the game. Especially on December 24th, as this is when Parasite Eve begins on day 1. Parasite Eve was Square's first M-rated video game due to disturbing imagery, horror, sexual themes, and violence. Playing this in 2023, it wasn't nearly as scary as I remembered, but I still loved the opera opening in Carnegie Hall. This title had a unique vibe. It felt like I was playing a sci-fi Lethal Weapon Resident Evil RPG. I loved the buddy cop feel, like Riggs and Murtaugh were investigating mitochondrial monsters in New York City. The story, gameplay, and puzzles were actually pretty simple, but not in a bad way. The equipment modding overwhelmed me at first, but was also simple once you figured out how it worked. The warehouse level is infamous as a trap for unsuspecting players, and I'm not gonna lie, I nearly had to restart my playthrough after saving deep inside this deadly dungeon-like area. Even though early Polygon games age like milk, I still found the FMVs to be beautiful in their own dated way here. To sum up my experience, Parasite Eve is peaceful and enjoyable to play. I had multiple concurrent sessions that clocked over 8 hours because time just flew by while Aya and I attempted to stop the mitochondrial threat in New York City. I never got tired of playing this title, never felt like I needed a break, and I look forward to playing the sequel next Halloween. Oh, this is awesome. Look at that. That's so cool. Spikes in its tongue.
On stream, I've never beat any Kirby games, and then in real life, I've only ever beaten the first Kirby's Dream Land and Kirby's Adventure. Those are the only Kirby games I've beaten.
Number 3, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Nintendo Switch 2022. After getting caught inside a strange storm while traversing Dreamland, Kirby awakens and finds himself washed ashore in a mysterious world, one where nature and civilization have become one. Take control of the powerful pink puffball Kirby and move around freely in 3D stages as you discover a mysterious world with abandoned structures from a past civilization, like a shopping mall. Copy enemies' abilities and use them to attack and explore your surroundings. What journey awaits Kirby? Take a deep breath and get ready for an unforgettable adventure. This is the official description for Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Kirby and the Forgotten Land is a 3D platformer published by Nintendo. It's the first 3D action platformer in the main Kirby series. This game follows the formula of reaching the end goal location of each stage, where Kirby frees captured Waddle Dees. Waddle Dee Town functions as the main hub for Kirby and his allies. In it, Kirby can unlock various structures as he frees more Waddle Dees by completing stages and their missions, which can unlock subgames and collectibles. At Waddle Dee's weapon shop, Kirby can evolve his copy abilities, allowing them to become more powerful in a system somewhat similar to the ability scrolls from Kirby Squeak Squad. In this title, Kirby gains access to something called Mouthful Mode, which requires Kirby to partially inhale portions of the environment around him in order to proceed further, typically radically transforming his size and shape. This game supports 2-player co-op in which player 1 is Kirby and player 2 is Bandana Waddle Dee, and I explored the 2-player functionality a bit with my younger daughter, which she really seemed to enjoy. Bandana Waddle Dee has the same basic movement options as Kirby, but he's limited to his own unique moveset. This title features smooth controls, cool upgradable powers that were a joy to utilize, and a post-game worth playing through, with a ton of additional content and challenge. I would say the base game has a low difficulty, but the post-game definitely turns up the heat. When it comes to upgradable powers, the Morpho Sword stood out as especially awesome and was really worth obtaining. I upgraded mine once and it said I was at max upgrades. Then I used the double health item and maxed out the time on increased attack power and speed by stacking items. Using this combination, I took on the final Ultimate Cup Z and had a blast beating the whole thing. Kirby and the Forgotten Land was one of the first games I played in 2023, and I had it listed as my #1 game until very late in the year. It's a 3D platform that's worth checking out.
Oh shit. I know I can do that. Well, that worked.
Yep, and they fight him. Yo, you can't take on that team. What are you thinking, Sorrow? What are you thinking trying to take this team on? There's no way. Number 2, Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2023. This is the newest game on my list, and it's also the last game that I played for the year. In this title, you play as Sorrow, a young man cursed by his father, the master of monster kind, to be unable to harm any creature with monster blood. Sorrow is actually the main villain of Dragon Quest IV: Chapters of the Chosen, which is currently my favorite game in the franchise. This game covers Sorrow's childhood, the events of Dragon Quest IV, and then it slightly alters the timeline and puts you on a different path from the Sorrow of Dragon Quest IV, retconning some story elements. Since Sorrow is cursed and unable to harm any monsters, the player basically treats him like an Ash Ketchum type of protagonist. You need to capture monsters, breed them, and train them to take control of monster kind. Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince features the familiar spells, abilities, music, and monsters from the titular Dragon Quest franchise, and many characters and locations from Dragon Quest IV make a return here. This is actually the 7th game in the Monsters subseries, but it's our first time playing any of them. I didn't have high expectations for this title, but wow, was I wrong. While this game was plagued with poor frame rates, boring cutscenes, and a mute main character, and it left me with a pretty poor first impression, wow, I've got to say that this game is addicting. I couldn't stop playing this for multiple hours at a clip. This title boasts a great progression system, cool monsters and abilities, a rewarding battle system, and nice looking environments. The monster synthesizing was a blast. I spent hours playing around with different combinations and working on leveling up different talents. There was a staggering number of potential combinations and builds, and developing my endgame team was worth the many hours it took to get there. Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince is a Pokemon-like monster-catching game worth getting into, and it was my second favorite title in 2023.
The gods wanted this power kept secret.
Let's see what happens. Oh god.
I feel reborn.
Activating offensive protocols. Uh-oh. Please defeat me. That's pretty cool. Number 1, Pokemon Violet, released for the Nintendo Switch in 2022. Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet make up the 9th installments of the Pokemon series. Unlike previous Pokemon installments, Scarlet and Violet take place in the Paldea region, which is based on the Iberian Peninsula and features an open world. There are 3 separate stories the player can complete. Scarlet and Violet introduced 120 new Pokemon, along with 2 new regional forms and time-displaced creatures known as Paradox Pokemon. Scarlet and Violet introduced the Terrestrial phenomenon, which gives Pokemon a crystalline appearance and changes their type to match their Terra type. In my opinion, this adds even more depth and variety to an already deep and diverse title. Violet maintains features from previous modern Pokemon games, including large open areas and Pokemon appearing in the overworld, which I love. Shockingly to me, Scarlet and Violet received mixed reviews from critics, becoming the lowest rated mainline games in the series, despite my enjoying Violet more than almost any other Pokemon game I've ever played. The games sold over 10 million copies in their first 3 days, making them Nintendo's biggest launch of all time. In the story of Pokemon Violet, the player takes control of a student in the Yuva Academy, and while taking part in the annual treasure hunt, they encounter the legendary Pokemon Miraidon, who joins and assists the player despite having lost its ability to battle. The player is then encouraged to participate in 3 separate story paths. Victory Road, which consists of the classic Pokemon journey, clearing all 8 gyms, beating the gym leaders, and eventually defeating the Elite Four. Starfall Street. Here, the player must attack the Team Star bases consisting of the Dark Crew, Fire Crew, Poison Crew, Fairy Crew, and Fighting Crew, and then defeating each team's star boss. And the Path of Legends, in which the player is tasked with acquiring the 5 legendary Herba Mystica, obtainable by defeating the 5 Titan Pokemon. Upon completing the 3 story paths, the game concludes in the mysterious Area 0, the home of especially powerful Paradox Pokemon, where secrets of Paldea unravel in a thrilling conclusion. I was originally going to rate this game much lower when I finished the main quest. I was not really that high in it. Some of the story segments feel really drawn out. There's lots of text, there's no voice acting at all, even though sometimes it really feels like voice acting would have helped some of the scenes. The early portions of the game felt shallow, and while the open world was cool, there was just very few roadblocks preventing me from doing whatever I wanted. There was nearly 0 puzzles, and the few that there were, which were during gym tests, were just really oversimplistic and made for children. But where this game shined was the post-game. It kept me playing for many hours, even after I was quote-unquote done with this title. I played for over 505 hours. The PvP was so deep, coming up with different combinations of teams and competing in tournaments. You're building teams that work together and synergize with each other, almost like you're building like a deck of Magic the Gathering cards and you're trying to come up with like a meta deck. You would come up with a meta team of Pokemon. I ended up sticking with the Perish Song team strategies towards the end of my time with this game, which was an absolute blast. I love doing the co-op raids. I actually built Pokemon that were specifically made to fill roles in raids. I love doing the co-op raids. I love the PvP, and even running around co-op with other players I met on my stream was, I got so much enjoyment out of this game. It was actually painful when I stopped playing it. I just had to move on and play other games. Otherwise, I would have just spent my whole year playing Pokemon Violet. My oldest daughter played through her own campaign in Pokemon Violet and was very interested in the mysterious Area 0 and talked about it constantly. Although when she finally got there, she got to the final battle with Dr. Toro, lost once, and stopped playing. It was just such a great game for kids, such a great game for adults, and it's a worthy title to introduce friends and family to the Pokemon franchise. But out of the 61 games I played this year, Pokemon Violet was easily my #1, and if you haven't played this game, I don't know what you're doing. They are still releasing DLC for this title. I would grab this game, I would check it out, and you're gonna have an excellent time. Good night. And that's it for all 61 games that we played in 2023. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like and leave a comment down below. I hope to see you next time for our 2024 video. Alright, see ya.